Freak up room, no seat, bite it never bites. Fast for the women in the girls, down in the guys. Spin not seat, black, you right, fight. OMG, Mac 4, Robin C, Gallon Neck Night. Hot stove talk, Robin C, bringing the hype. EC's alive, plus trust under those in my city life. Right? Queens got the dreams united. On the rag, Trump out, bring me stack. Night and under that chocolate flag. Smack that home out the park. Fuck the deafening black. Side game time, Robin CP time to ignite. Under NYC skies, we fight the good fight. Remains cheer in the orange, we unite. Match forever. I'm 50 in sight. Match bright and high. Energy like a live wire. Queen City chance. Passion never tires. Grand slam dreams and paces focus fast. Holding it steady, cause we know we gonna last. We the kings of the field, time to ignite. Under NYC skies, we fight the good fight. Remain cheer in the orange, we unite. Match forever, I'm 50 in sight. All hearts ignite like NYC stars. Robin CP, guiding even through scars. Queens got the glow, city anthem flows.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to another Mets Hot Stove right here on the channels, episode 13 of Mets Hot Stove Live. And we are getting closer and closer to the end of the MLB winter meetings. Today has been mostly rumors going about when it comes to certain free agents, couple of trades, possibilities, big pitching trade names going out there. And you do wonder, is this going to be another lackluster MLB meetings with not a lot of moves once again after the big fish Juan Soto signed with the New York Mets? Everybody thought everything was going to start rolling and heating up. And it's basically been nothing. You know, you had Alex Cobb, a couple of, small relievers, nothing crazy at this point. A couple of deals that became official, but nothing at the moment. But there might be some imminent news in regards to a free agent pitcher, Max Fried. It does not involve the Mets. It's just one of the bigger guys on the market. So I just bring that up before we get started. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing well. A little bit of an underwhelming MLB winter meetings yesterday and today. I thought today was going to pick up. We still got a lot of time left from now until the end of the night. As much as I wish the Mets were in on these Fried sweepstakes, that seems like it's between a couple of AL East teams. We've heard from Morosi and other reporters that is going north of like 7 years for that kind of deal, which is just absolutely insane. But again, we appreciate everyone being here with us. We do have some stuff to talk about as it pertains to Garrett Crochet, Roki Sasaki, more so on the pitching front, but I'm sure we'll talk some offense as well. We appreciate you all being here. Hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to both channels, all the shameless plugging that we have to do. Hopefully they're not sick of us yet, Rob. I mean, we've been on here for like 3 or 4 days straight with the Soto watches, MLB winter meetings watch party, Mets Hot Stove Live. We are here for you all to give you the latest and greatest and provide some entertainment. So thank you for rocking with us. We definitely appreciate it.
Yes, before we get started with our topics, all I have to say is Juan Soto's a New York Met. I just had to say that one more time, just for the hell of it, because why not? It was epic. It was still probably the best feeling Met fans could have had in basically ever. I mean, this is the biggest acquisition, free agent or trade in the team's history, probably since Mike Piazza, Gary Carter. So, it's up there in history for the franchise. So that's awesome. All right. So let's get started with David Stearns. And I want to thank Chris for this because I was running errands after work and he was the one that brought that up, that Stearns canceled an MLB Network appearance. Also, Brian Cashman did too, the same day, which was kind of interesting. And I kind of have an opinion about that, or a little bit of a, idea to why. But Stearns did cancel his MLB Network appearance not too long after Cashman did the same thing. And we know Cashman and the Yankees are in on Fried, but we also heard today that the Mets and the Yankees are heavily pursuing and seem like they could be the favorites to land Garrett Crochet. And, you would think here we go again. We get the, battle number 2. The Mets won the battle, but did the Yankees win the war? You're thinking, something like this, when it comes to, could this be a battle part 2 for another top, pitcher or top player that could be available? And it's very possible. But again, I think the Cashman thing is probably more with Fried as more stuff has been coming out. But with David Stearns canceling the MLB Network appearance, again, this is odd from GMs, right? They would usually go on, be on their phones most of the time, looking down at their phones and everything like that. And they would, and the host would like make jokes about looking at their phones. You want to tell us the news and all that stuff. So them canceling, specifically Stearns canceling that appearance, tells me that something's in the works and it's more legitimate and it's more approaching than we actually think. And I want to ask you, Chris, where do you think it's? Do you think it's mostly the Crochet situation, or do you think it's something? Because I don't think Alonso is making him cancel an appearance of MLB Network. So it has to be Crochet. I don't think Jonathan Loaisiga's contract is gonna make him cancel an appointment or appearance. So what do you think about when it comes to Stearns canceling that MLB Network appearance?
Yeah, first of all, I woke up and we both woke up to the report from again Mike Rodriguez, Mike Deportes over there on X, talking about Jonathan Loaisiga having a 3-year, $27 million deal with the Mets. And we heard crickets thereafter. We know that the Mets are probably interested on Loaisiga, but $9 million AAV over the course of 3 years after coming off of UCL surgery does not sound right at all. And I questioned that report immediately. And I think Robert Murray right thereafter was also one of the major reporters to debunk that. So again, Loaisiga is still a fit for this bullpen, but we don't have anything official there for some people who were messaging me about that. Yeah, Crochet, that report from Ken Rosenthal came out of nowhere last night. Nowhere. And I was honestly getting ready for bed and I saw that and I made a little bit of a video about it on my channel talking about this bombshell pretty much that Rosenthal dropped, because again, we knew that the Mets would probably check in on Garrett Crochet. We were talking about the prospect capital. Rob, we were talking about both of our trade proposals for Garrett Crochet at one time on both of our channels and on one of our live streams. And then it went quiet, right? It went quiet on the Garrett Crochet talks. We've been pivoting to Luis Castillo. We even mentioned like Framber Valdez. And now we understand what the market is looking like for Garrett Crochet. Obviously, some NL Central teams are in on him. The Phillies are said to be in on him. We don't know if the Red Sox are going to be in on Garrett Crochet. And that is the most interesting team to look out for, as they are also pursuing Fried and Burns. I would imagine if they strike out on both of those guys who have large markets, they would pivot to Garrett Crochet. And at that point, it would be very, very tough for the Mets to outbid them prospect-wise. But Mets versus Yankees 2.0 for Crochet. Again, there's a lot of differences in opinions. I'm sure we'll talk about what a potential return could look like. But if David Stearns canceled his MLB Network, interview, and he's working on a Garrett Crochet trade right now, then you know what? Let him do his job. But yeah, I do find that curious because we actually did hear from David Stearns in an SNY interview. I think the MLB Network interview was scheduled to be later tonight, which was canceled. But we did hear him talk about Roki Sasaki. We heard him talk about Kodai Senga as well, who has not started throwing the baseball as of yet this offseason. And they said it's not abnormal. But again, you have to think, right? Like, not throwing. I mean, we know the injury concern that he has had this entire season in 2024, this past year. So again, it's just kind of like a red flag in the back of your mind, but not a big enough red flag yet. But he did finish that statement for Kodai Senga up by saying that they expect him to be the opening day starter again, which I'm not sure if that is an indicator of what their plans are for the rotation as well in itself. Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, I would love to imagine, and maybe this is just a false hope because the winter meetings have been so quiet, that something's cooking up for the New York Mets tonight, and that's why David Stearns canceled his MLB Network interview.
Yeah, you're not going to be in on Crochet, and that has been confirmed. And Stearns talked about they're going to do their best to try to land Sasaki and tell me that Kodai Senga is the ace on open day. Of course, as of right now, he's going to say that, right? Just like he was talking about other guys that might have been available and weren't even bringing up Juan Soto, right? We all knew they were in on him. So, again, I think that's a lot of smoke and mirrors when it comes to saying Kodai Senga is the opening day starter at this point because, well, yeah, because Crochet's not a Met and Manaea is not a Met, and somebody else is not a Met. That could be a top line starter, but yeah, I'm already annoyed with Senga. This guy needs everything to go perfectly. He's basically DeGrom 2.0 when it comes to needing to feel 100% to get on the mound. Right? DeGrom is great when he's healthy. But how many times did he couldn't pitch because, he felt a little something or, he was a little sore and it might have been something and basically didn't pitch. That worries me with Kodai Senga because the whole issue with Kodai Senga was he could have came back a little bit earlier prior to when he did against Atlanta. But what happened was he wasn't feeling 100% right. And I know that's like, all right, Rob, shut up. But your team was going through it. Your team was, trying to get back to relevancy and was starting to look better and getting hot and starting to go on a roll. You needed Kodai Senga. And this is where I get mad about with some pitching. And this is what always a little irked me about DeGrom. And I think it irked the Mets. When the Mets needed DeGrom the most, especially later on, before they finally just said good riddance, those last couple of years, you really need DeGrom to step up. And it felt like he never wanted to go out there unless he was 100%. Find me a pitcher that's 100%, right? 75%, 80%, maybe even 90% if you're pushing it. You go out there for your team. And I feel like Kodai Senga is not doing that. And I feel, and it annoys, I know he's got really good stuff, but you can't trust him being healthy. I'm just sorry, right? It's December 10th, so I'm not going to go completely nuts, but him not throwing at all, there's already throwing regimens from a lot of pitchers already, right? They're already starting to throw, starting to loosen up, all that. Some of them are in the fall leagues, some of them in the winter leagues in the Caribbean as well. So they're already stretching themselves out, working on their arms, and Kodai Senga is doing nothing, right? We're only 2 months away until pitchers and catchers, guys. Like, it's not that far away, right? You can't have Kodai Senga still trying to, get prepared to pitch in a spring training game and pitch 20 pitches. And then, hopefully he stretches out, hopefully with no injury. Because if there's any setback, he's not starting opening day if that happens to be the case. So I'm sorry I went on that rant there. That kind of annoyed me when it comes to Kodai Senga that he's not throwing yet. Because I heard that. I'm like, are you serious? Like, I'm not saying, go out in the backyard and throw 100 pitches. But he's not throwing at all. Apparently, so this is another thing, Chris. Why isn't he throwing? The Mets were so confident in him to pitch him in the playoffs, but he can't throw? So was he actually hurt? And the Mets just threw him out there just to throw him out there? Like, it's so stupid. Like, they contradicted themselves in that aspect.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get as worked up as maybe you are about it right now, to be honest with you. I get, but you're right, though. At the end of the day, I know it's December 10th, but you are right in the fact that pitchers and catchers reporting will be here before you know it, right? And especially, someone coming off of an injury and not throwing the baseball for more often than not in 2024, you would think that you probably are in a spot where we would expect you to be fully healthy and you'd be ramping up a little bit early. So I hear you. Again, it's not a red flag as of yet, but it's always something that's going to be in the back of our minds, especially with how this past season went. So the good news and what David Stearns did say here that I'm reading this quote when he was asked about if luxury tax thresholds will be a factor for 2025. And I quote from David Stearns, I don't think we're looking at any sort of specific number as a threshold. I'm confident this year and going forward that we're going to have plenty of resources to put good teams on the field. So probably already known, but nice to hear that from the GM, or the POBO, I should say, and who's a direct speaker essentially for the owner, in that, you know, they are not going to be lowering any payrolls like some of these other teams are. The Giants, the Yankees ownership group saying that no. The New York Mets are here and they're committed to spending the money, which we already know about, right? That Juan Soto signing signified that to us. But yeah, man, Crochet, do we want to talk about potential deals? I feel like the people want to know. We both have live chat polls talking about prospects that could or could not be involved in this trade. I know in your live chat poll, you have a duo of prospects that you would prioritize, or the viewers would prioritize. And in my poll, of the 4 main prospects that the Mets have to offer position-wise, you know, which prospect would, you know, subscribers and viewers prioritize in terms of not including, right? Because again, you know, I know Garrett Crochet, you know, 25 going on 26 years old, 2 years of control left, electric. I understand all of that, right? But at a certain point, unless you get into a solidified bidding war with either the Cubs and the Red Sox, who have the 2 best farm systems to offer a package up alongside the Mets, right? Probably even a tier above the Mets in terms of their prospect talent that they can offer. You know, if it's between the Mets and the Yankees, there's no question in my mind the Mets have the resources and what it takes to outbid the New York Yankees while still not needing to, quote unquote, send the farm over. And again, we're not naive to the fact that it's going to take a top 10 prospect, maybe even 2 to complete this deal, maybe a Brett Beatty as a throw-in, and perhaps a lower level prospect. Like, we understand it's going to take prospect capital. But again, you know, I saw a trade proposal out there talking about, you know, Colin Houck, Drew Gilbert, and Jet Williams, and I forgot the 4th prospect that they had over there. So again, there's just like a certain line where in initial talks you just don't cross until you absolutely need to. Now, we don't know. For all we know, maybe a team like the Cubs, you know, are sneakily involved in this market because they want to get that lefty pitcher. We know that they need one because they were already engaging in trade talks with the Diamondbacks for Jordan Montgomery. Obviously, Garrett Crochet is a lot better of a pitcher than Jordan Montgomery. So we don't know, besides the Mets and the Yankees and presumably the Phillies, who's really in on Garrett Crochet heavily. Now, there was a report, and I forgot who actually stated this, which reporter stated this, saying that although the Phillies are in on Garrett Crochet, they would not be as inclined to offer their best offer in terms of prospect return than some of the other teams. So at least that's good news. But again, things can change with the snap of a finger just like that.
Yeah, so if you know, if most of us are Mets fans in the chat and we are Mets fans, you are rooting for the Red Sox to get Max Fried. And the reason why, now I don't believe,
Sorry, as I mute. Max Fried to the Yankees per Jeff Passan. 8 years, $218 million. Wow. 8-year contract for Max Fried. Breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, from Jeff Passan himself. Sorry, Rob, I was on mute there for a second on my mic, but I was like getting excited. This is why we do these streams, right? For stuff like this to happen. Yeah. So 218 divided by 8, that's $27.25 million for Max Fried over the course of, 8 years. And again, another lefty off the board. So presumably the lefties that are still on the board is a trade for Garrett Crochet and old friend Sean Manaea. That's probably in line for a 3 to 4 year deal. Yep. Could you see a world, and we'll talk about the Yankees and Max Fried here in just a second, because again, like a rotation that is headlined by Garrett Cole and Max Fried is awesome. Yankees fans, I'll give you that, right? That's an awesome duo at the top of your rotation, no matter how many years you give Max Fried. 8 years is pushing it. I would have been, I know you wouldn't have even been comfortable with this, but I would have probably said 6 years. 8 years is a gamble. I'm not going to lie to you. 8 years is a gamble.
So before we just came on, we talked about it, right? That the Red Sox were the ones that had the 7th year on the table. I was like, the Yankees going to have to go to 8 years to get him. And look, I never fault the team for They wanted him. They got him. Who cares? Now, the issue with this is that again, we talked about the last 2 years with injuries that is concerning, right? I don't trust Rodon at all. So let's not even put him in the spectrum of a top line starter. He has top line stuff, but again, he blows up whenever possible. You're getting Cole another year older. And again, the Yankees have not lost in the playoffs because of pitching. They've lost because they couldn't hit. And once again, and this is the issue with Carlos Rodon when the Yankees signed him. It sounded like a good deal. Like, wow, you targeted him, you got him. You targeted Max Fried, you got him. That wasn't your main issue. Now, you might, have a great pitching staff, but again, we've seen this throughout baseball. And again, everybody who is talking about, pitching wins you championships, again, the Yankees have not pitched badly in the postseason, right? It has been the offense that did not step up. So here we go again with the Yankees, and there was a lot of Yankee fans. If you listen to WFAN, and I know Ken's in the chat right now, listen to WFAN. The Yankee fans keep on saying, we don't need more pitching because pitching has not been the issue. Even with Cole struggling and not being as good as he was last year or 2023, and with Rodon obviously pitching better than 2023, which is not saying much, but they, Clark Schmidt came back. Their rotation was pitching fine. It was the offense that was an issue, and it was the issue throughout the entire year, minus Soto and obviously Aaron Judge. But when it came to playoff time, you had 2 out of your 9 hitters. 2 out of your 9 hitters actually provide offense. And that's where the Yankee fans are going to continue to complain. They were complaining about it on the radio, about that. Like, yeah, great, Max Fried, wonderful. But that does not do enough for what they're trying to. And again, they can get Bellinger, which, again, I'm sorry. If you replace Bellinger for Soto, that's not enough. I'm sorry. Bellinger's a solid player, but he's not the MVP he was with the Dodgers. He's just not. He's not the same player. And that's not even filling out enough holes for the Yankees. And that's the concern. And again, I love when a team targets a player and gets him.
Yeah.
You can be excited about that, but it's hard. If I'm a Yankee fan, I would not look, even if this was the Mets. If this was the Mets, now the Mets obviously need more pitching, right? So we need a top line starter, right? The Yankees have Garrett Cole, right? An 8-year deal for a pitcher like this is top line starter money. And again, when you get to the playoffs, then again, Fried has not been good in the playoffs, by the way.
No, he got smoked these playoffs by the Padres. So
yeah, he's been bad in the postseason. So again, if Yankee fans only care about postseason and World Series, which it's 16 years now. I was ending high school the last time, I was in college the last time they won a World Series. So just think the fact that they got an 8-year deal. Now, I think they got Carlos Rodon kind of on somewhat of a bargain when it came to years. Money-wise, I don't care about the money. The years are the issue. 8 years for Max Fried. I'm sorry.
Right.
Chris, you really wanted Max Fried. You were talking 5 years, possibly 6.
Yeah.
Not 8. But again,
no.
You don't fault the Yankees for targeting that guy. They had to get him away from the Red Sox. This is the thing that I was talking about with Soto. It had nothing to do with the Mets, the Yankees, when it came to Soto to the Mets. They needed to outperform the 2 AL East teams when it came to their contract to save face. This situation, you can't have him go to the AL East rival. And that's why the Yankees probably went to the 8th year. And that's just...
They paid him. Now Max Fried is officially has the 4th highest pitcher total contract in the history of the game. Garrett Cole is number 2, and he's number 4.
Yeah, and again, this is not faulting the Yankees because they targeted somebody. But again, this is the issue that Yankee fans have been having with Cashman, is that the issues that the Yankees really have, and now again, $27.25 million. The Yankees are right at that third threshold now. They're right there. They maybe got like $15 million to spend here. Because I'm telling you right now, guys, they are not going over that third luxury tax.
So I mean, let's look at this though. I mean, what other like holes do they need to fill? I mean, again, sorry, not because. By the way, I want to pivot back to this conversation talking about how this impacts Garrett Crochet, because at this point, if the Mets aren't in on Corbin Burns, you have to pray, if you're the Mets, that the Red Sox get Corbin Burns, because you want them out of the Garrett Crochet sweepstakes.
Well, it makes me a lot more confident that the Red Sox are going to do everything they can to get Burns now, like completely overpay for Burns, because they were clearly in the lead for Fried, and Max Fried probably went back to the Yankees and say, "Give me 8 years, and it's a done deal." This is probably what happened.
Yeah, I think the Jays could have something to say about it. Although, again, convincing a top free agent to go to Toronto's is going to be the same story. And then the team that's the most likely to compete for Burns to try to take him away from being a Red Sox is probably the Giants, I would say. Yeah. That would be the most
situated. He's from Northern California. So
right. And so yeah, that's how it's shaping up to be. But what was I going to say as well? This probably takes the Yankees out of the Crochet sweepstakes, I would imagine, right? But like, what other holes do they have to fill? I mean, they need a first baseman. They probably need a third baseman still, right?
I think John Rossi's left field, right field, right? If Judd's going to be in center field, right? So they got 3 or 4 holes that they have to fill in the infield.
Well, I don't even know if they're going to have Judge in center. I mean, they have Trent Grisham.
Even if it's right field.
I know, I agree. That's my thought process, and that would be my face as well. But again,
they got Jason Dominguez, right? So again, he was a butcher last year in the outfield. He could not catch a ball. He was bad, and that wasn't the what they represented him as. He was supposed to be a solid defender, and his bat was supposed to be really good. Now, again, I have no problem with the Yankees saying, "All right." Now, the reason why Jason Dominguez is not so fan friendly anymore was because the Yankees realized if they got Juan Soto, you can go a little cheaper other spots. You can go with Jason Dominguez, right? You can get, you can try to trade for Arenado, an older veteran at third base. You move Chisholm to second. There's a lot of holes where unless the Yankees make 2 or 3 trades to fill those holes, they have to go over that third luxury tax. And this is where I'm questioning this signing, because seriously, guys, if you got Cole and Rodon, Clark Schmidt, right, Luis Gil, that's not a terrible rotation. That is a solid rotation.
It's a good rotation.
That will get you into the playoffs, right? So that's not the issue. The issue is, unless the Yankees, now again, they weren't willing to go the extra step to get Juan Soto that actually helped them get to a World Series, which was the bat. There was nobody replacing Juan Soto in that Yankees lineup, no matter who they get. Even Anthony Santander is not Juan Soto. And we all think the Yankees are not going to get Anthony Santander. I mean, they could. And again, I give them a hell of a lot of props if they do, but I don't see it.
The closest thing they could do, Rob, is go and get Kyle Tucker, which is not happening. Any Yankees fan that actually believes the Astros are going to trade them Kyle Tucker, let alone the fact that the Yankees do not have the assets to trade for Kyle Tucker. They don't have it. And the Astros would never do that anyways, not in a million years.
Right. It's especially when you got other desperate teams like the Red Sox, like other teams that has, that are desperate, like the Blue Jays, that might really go hard for that. I just, any team that really needs a right fielder. And, everybody was starting to talk about the Mets before Juan Soto, but yeah, it's very interesting. I'm a little shocked. I knew the Yankees were in on him, but I don't get it.
Shout out to John Rossi with the super chat. Don't they need an entire infield? I think he is talking about the New York Yankees. Yeah, I mean, they definitely need a first baseman. They probably need a third baseman as well from the looks of it if they're moving Jazz over to second base. Gleyber Torres is getting some interest from the Blue Jays per the last reports as well, which should be interesting. And so again, we can objectively say, right, Rob, that this rotation that the Yankees are building is good. It's really good. It's solid. But again, 8 years also if we're being completely objective and taking any bias aside, and Yankees fans, please, if you're in the chat, I'm sure you are, whether it's on my channel or Rob's channel, chime in on how you actually feel about this signing. We're not denying that Max Fried, he was honestly my favorite pitcher on this market for a shorter term deal. Again, 5, maybe 6 years. Again, he's 30, turning 31 in January, and you're going to have him for 8 years. So he's going to be pitching in a Yankees uniform until he's 38 or 39 years old. How many pitchers, starting wise, does that ever work out to be a great contract? So I don't know. Yeah.
I see people in the chat talking about the Red Sox are going to be a real challenger for Crochet. I think that's kind of out of the question, only because the Red Sox GM and I believe the president of the Red Sox as well also said on a radio station, WEEI, that they are not trading Roman Anthony, who is their top overall prospect in their system, who's an outfielder, and he's projected to be up this year. They're not trading him. They already said that. So I find it hard to believe that the Red Sox are going to get Crochet without giving up Anthony. The same way why every one of my answers for the poll included Jet Williams or Sproat, because it's either going to be one of those two guys, if not both of those guys, in a deal for Crochet.
No,
right?
I don't think they're getting rid of Sproat, man. No chance.
Well, they might not. Well, then they're not getting Crochet. I mean, they could.
No chance.
They could leave out Crochet. Sproat, and put it, obviously Jet Williams is going to be in that deal. I feel like that's kind of the obvious idea. He'll be in there, right? I don't think they're trading Gilbert. I think Gilbert's untouchable. Ryan Clifford, I think it's 50-50, right? I don't see them trading both guys they got from Verlander. I don't see that. They might trade Clifford. I think Gilbert's untouchable, and I think Sproat's untouchable. But again, you have to think you're getting a 25, 26-year-old young pitcher with control, which you'll probably extend, which will be a lot cheaper than Fried and Burns, because when you extend, you're buying out arbitration years, so it might cost you $150 million for a pitcher that has a ton of less innings than Fried, a ton of less innings than Burns, who is a guy that is a fireballer. He is a pitcher. He is damn good, right? And again, the reason why we keep on talking about Crochet, because Burns is probably unlikely. Max Fried has got 8 years, 218. What the hell do you think? Everybody believes Burns is better, if not much better. He's going to probably get 8 or 9, probably 9 years at this point. If Fried got 8, Burns is going to get 9, if not 10. He's going to get north. He's probably going to get close to $300 million.
Going to get a Garrett Cole 2.0 contract.
Correct. He might get over Garrett Cole's contract. He might have the number 1 pitching contract in baseball, but when it's all said and done. So
also some breaking news. I was completely unaware that the lottery draft drawing was tonight, and the Nationals won it. The Washington Nationals won it. And they seem to be lucking out like just recently. I don't know what it is, man.
They don't have a record either. Like you were thinking the Rockies, the Marlins, like the Rockies, they were on MLB Network talking like they were hoping they can actually get it. And that see that this is why it's annoying, because the Nationals really don't have to spend any money, because these top prospects, they've been getting the number 1, number 2, number 3 pick in the draft for like 5 years straight. And you're going to get a phenom. You are. And good for them. But again, they don't have to spend money. Like they're scary. They're on the verge over the next year or two to be a threat in the NL East. And not only do we have to worry about the Phillies and the Braves, we're going to have to worry about the Nationals, who are going to be a pesky pain in the ass, even when they're not on that level yet. They're going to be a pain in the ass to everybody in the NL East.
Which is why a lot of people also had them in the Alonso running, right? Because they're a team that is not there yet, but they're on the verge of potentially being there. You talk about a rotation that has Mackenzie Gore leading the way. You've got, right, the assets that they got in that Soto deal, right? James Wood, Abrams, their draft pick in Dylan Cruz. Like again, like I've got a lot of buddies who are Nationals fans, and they have not been excited about Nationals baseball at all. Oh, something else happened?
Breaking news. Jeff Passan, The Toronto Blue Jays are finalizing a trade to acquire 3-time Gold Glove winner second baseman Andres Jimenez from the Guardians.
Wow.
That means they're not getting Gleyber Torres now, unless they put him at shortstop.
Ex-New York Met on the move.
Interesting. And that's
who won the trade now? So who won the trade now, by the way, for Lindor and Jimenez? Because everyone's saying that the Mets lost that trade, by the way, if I may remind everybody.
Yep. And just think the Guardians have nobody from that team, from that trade anymore.
Well, they just extended Ramirez, didn't they?
Yeah.
So I don't understand the move. I don't get it.
I think Jimenez is coming up on either arbitration or he's going to be a free agent. So that's probably the reason why they're not spending money.
That's why I was kind of like, that's why when I was talking about center field trade targets in one of my videos earlier that I dropped a couple weeks ago, I said Lane Thomas. If we can strike a deal for Lane Thomas, I'd be interested. Because again, the Guardians are a team that, they're a perpetual good team, but it's just like, you're not going to win a championship operating under that philosophy. I mean, it makes zero sense. So, good for the Blue Jays. They got a great one, honestly, at this point.
Jimenez is a solid player. And I think it was Boo that said that he's an overpaid player. He's not overpaid. He's still under his rookie deal. He's not even, I think he's going to be a free agent. That's because I think he's a free agent after this year. Because he came up with the Mets in 2020. So he has service time. So right. Yeah, I think it's 2025. He's a free agent. So there you go. That's the reason why the Guardians. And again, this is why a guy like Ramirez, who probably loved it in Cleveland, right, is going to get stuck there probably for the next couple of years until the Guardians trade him. It's probably going to happen at some point. So, again, this is why I can never get behind teams like that, because you got to the ALCS, right? You lost to the Yankees, who were better than you, but you didn't make it easy for them. And you could have done, I'm not saying them to spend a ton of money, but you know what? They got prospects. They could have traded for somebody that can help them out in the rotation, right? Why can't they be involved in Crochet? It's so stupid to me, and it's nuts and very annoying. And this is why when owners of those type of teams complain about Steve Cohen, Hal Steinbrenner, the Guggenheim Group, all the big owners and the big spenders, they complain, but they're pocketing the money they're getting from those owners because of the luxury tax. They're not putting the money back into their team, right? I'm telling you, the next CBA, there needs to be a rule that owners need to spend 50% of the money they pocket that they get from other teams. It just has to. You have to put it back into the team. And that's why I don't feel bad for teams like the Marlins or any other team and the fan bases that, I'm not blaming the fan bases, but a team like Pittsburgh got one of the best stadiums in the country in Major League Baseball. It's a great atmosphere. It's a great ballpark, a great town, downtown Pittsburgh. It's beautiful. It's great. Yet the owner is a cheap bastard.
Wait, hold on, Rob. Hold on. We need to have a different discussion here because I just looked at Andres Jimenez's contract. He already signed an extension with Cleveland. I had no idea about. So we need to change the tune of this because he's under contract until at least 2030 because he has a club option that year, and he's an unrestricted free agent in 2031 when he's 32 years old. So so he's not a free agent next year. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 6 years of control left.
Well, again, but the Guardians didn't want to pay the money that they extended him with. You see, this is how stupid these organizations are.
Well, we got to see what they get in return for him.
I mean, it can't be much if Toronto's taking on the salary.
Right. Well, we don't know that just yet.
Yeah. I mean, I would think they're taking on the salary. The Guardians are probably not going to pay any of it. And they're probably going to get not much back. And again, my point is still proven. This is not helping the Guardians here who got to the ALCS. This is why fan bases, and you know what? The Mets were part of this for a while with the Wilpons when they were basically a New York team that was in a secondary market, in a lower tier market, it felt like. And they ran the team like that for years after Madoff. But man, it's
do you think this means that the Blue Jays are more again, I mean, Bo Bichette is also going to be a free agent. Do you think that this move signifies that they're going to be more willing and more aggressive to extend Vladdy Jr. and just not be open to trading him? I don't think they're trading him regardless this offseason, like a lot of other Mets fans want to, try to pursue. I don't think that's on the table.
I don't think Guerrero is signing an extension. I think
look,
because he's so young, becoming a free agent, he just saw what Juan Soto got. You think he's going to take an extension for less money? I doubt that.
Well, he's hoping that Boris comes through clutch for Pete Alonso because he's going to beat whatever Pete Alonso makes.
Well, I don't even think the Guerrero thing with Pete Alonso has anything to do with it, because I think, Alonso is what, 3-4 years older than him. Guerrero is what, 26, 27? So he's younger. So he's going to get probably the 12, 13-year deal. Probably around $500 million, probably like that. It seems like that. So I don't think the Blue Jays, and he's going to become a free agent because he wants competition. And being a Boris client, he's going to free agency. So yeah, I mean, I see what the Blue Jays are trying to do here. And look, Andres Jimenez is better than Bo Bichette. Bo Bichette has never lived up to the hype. Andres Jimenez is a better player than Bo Bichette. That's a fact. He's going to solidify I know Jimenez played second base, but Jimenez is probably going to go to shortstop, which is his natural position. He's going to be better than Bo Bichette. He's a contact hitter. He's got a little bit of pop, but he's a guy that's probably going to thrive when you have Guerrero. He's probably going to bat in the top 5 of the lineup somewhere. He's probably going to be somewhere in like 1 or 2 in the lineup. And this is a good move by the Toronto Blue Jays. What I think is that they, like you said, they were in on Gleyber Torres. I mean, they still can get Gleyber Torres. Maybe Gleyber Torres is probably, there's a possibility that Gleyber Torres can get like $26, $27 million a year.
He's a glorified DH anyways, so I don't really know.
I agree. He's a butcher at playing defense. But so again,
another report here is hearing the Yankees are not done in advanced talks with first baseman Christian Walker.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
The Yankees are reportedly not done, and they are in advanced talks with Christian Walker.
Yeah, I do have to say, I think that's a solid move. That would be fine. But again,
it's 33, so I'm curious what the years would be on it.
This is what they're doing here, and I want to make this clear to Mets fans and Yankee fans, right? Christian Walker, solid ball player, right? Obviously, would thrive at Yankee Stadium. He's 34 years old, right? What are the Yankees trying to do here? They are pushing for a World Series with Aaron Judge, who is going to be, 33, 34? Over these next 2 to 3 years, which you would think is still pushing Judge's prime, right? He's leaning towards the edge of that prime. They're trying to get a world championship for Aaron Judge, but they weren't willing to go further for Juan Soto, who is obviously the best choice. So again, if you get Christian Walker, I'm assuming Christian Walker is not going to cost a ton, right? Because of his age. So again, what are they doing after Christian Walker? Again, their payroll, even if, what do you think Christian Walker is going to get per year?
I would say probably it depends. I don't know why he would sign before Pete Alonso to begin with, but again, maybe it's not because you're talking about
be desperate.
Well, yeah, I agree. So they're probably going to overpay him. So I would probably imagine, right? I mean, he's still a power hitter. He's a Gold Glove first baseman, right? The defense, and we've talked about this numerous times, that his defense is way far and beyond better than Pete Alonso's. It's not even a question. I don't know, man. When you take a look at these contracts, and if the Yankees are truly desperate and they're pissed off that they missed out on Juan Soto, I could see them paying him $25-26 million a year, to be honest with you. Not going to lie.
Yeah.
Which is up there with some of the top first basemen in the league right now.
Well, again, the Yankees are trying to push for the next 2 to 3 years to win a championship with Aaron Judge, because after the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to have a 36, 37-year-old Aaron Judge, and he's not going to be the same player. He's just not, even if he's a DH. I'm sorry, age catches up to everybody. I don't care how good you are. So, yeah.
Let me ask you this, Rob. Let's do the math real quick, because Soto is making 51. 51 mil a year, right? So let's just say they'll go 25 for Christian Walker, 25 plus 27.5. I'm no mathematician, so I apologize. I have to do this basic math on my calculator. $52.5 million for those two players versus 51 for Juan Soto. What do you think, like an honest grade of that pivot for the New York Yankees?
A C. It has to be, because again, they did not. Again, you paid Fried to be an ace, and he's not going to be the ace. He'll probably be two, but again, I just don't. What are the Yankees trying to do? Are the Yankees trying to? What the hell was that? You heard that?
What was it?
That was like a weird noise. I don't know.
It was probably like an echo from my side.
Oh, okay. So, I don't know. I mean, I understand the Yankees. I mean, I thought Christian Walker would be an option for the Yankees, but I thought Christian Walker would be an option for the Yankees with Juan Soto. So again, if Christian Walker is the big bat that they're going to get, and I'm sorry, I think Christian Walker, again, even if you get Bellinger, you're going to have to trade an asset plus take on the contract. And that's what, 18, 19 million, 20 something, what was it? 17, 19 million dollars, whatever the hell Bellinger was getting.
Yeah, I forgot what his contract is.
The Yankees, before any signings, their payroll was like 230 or something like that, right? So basically, what you would have gave Soto is what you gave to Fried and Walker, and they're at the 280 mark, and they're probably like $1 million or $2 million under that luxury tax. Because I think 290 is the third luxury tax, right? That's what we talked about.
That's what I think it was. So we concluded last time, yeah.
So they're about $5 to $6 million, probably under that third luxury tax. So there's the possibility they can trade Stroman, but who's taking Stroman's contract? The Yankees are gonna have to eat some of that contract. They're not gonna trade him and pay up the whole contract, because that doesn't help their payroll situation.
Dude, I'm sorry, man. That even if the Yankees get Christian Walker, that even if they get Walker and Bellinger, that lineup is extremely mid. It's extremely mid.
Like, I like Walker. Like, I think Walker would be fine. Look, he can be in front of Judge, no problem, right? He's going to see more pitches to hit, absolutely. But again, I don't trust Bellinger. You think Bellinger, who had issues, he's a 100% pull hitter. He's going to try to pull even more with that short porch. I don't know. You have to give up an asset and take on the rest of his contract. I don't know, man. I tell you, you know what? Yankees, keep on going for the older players. Keep on, spending stupid. I just don't understand. You paid $52 million, most likely $52 million to Fried and Walker. If that's going to be the number, if Walker probably going to get between 20 and 25 mil, which you would think. If he signed it before Pete Alonso, the Yankees are overpaying for him. It just seems like that. So Fried and Walker, other than Soto, I don't see the Yankees better. Now, of course, they can do more, absolutely, but again, they completely continue to say that they weren't probably going to go on over that third luxury tax, and unless they trade 2 or 3 guys, like, are they going to trade Stroman and another person to shed some payroll? And again, who is taking Stroman? I'm sorry. Didn't Stroman get like $15-16 million? Even if the Yankees pay half of that deal, it's only $8 million coming off the payroll. So what are they going to have? $12 million left over to add to their payroll under that luxury tax? It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know. The Yankees, and apologize to turn this into Yankees talk here for a second, but the stove is heating up. This is hot stove for a reason. Right, we're here to talk about the Mets, but we're seeing a flurry of moves here, and obviously Christian Walker to the Yankees isn't finalized just yet. So
Chris, I just want to say the reason why we're constantly talking about the Yankees, because it ended. Fried is important because the Mets and Yankees were in on Crochet. That's why we were talking about it, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, no, it's all hand in hand. But let's get onto the Crochet talks here too. In terms of the prospects, because you know what, I've seen a lot of Mets fans. And I've seen a lot of subscribers to my channel or on my channel in the comments section. Again, we read all of the comments that you guys have here in the live chat under all of our videos. We read it all. And there's a lot of Mets fans that surprisingly, Spro aside, we're talking about position players here mostly because we assume that's primarily what the package would be surrounded around is position players, going back to the White Sox. That's something that their GM like stated directly that they're looking for. So I've seen a lot of people and a lot of Mets fans say, you know what? Who cares about Drew Gilbert? Who cares about Jet Williams? Do not trade Luis Angel Acuna. That is their prospect that they do not want to part ways with. What are you thinking? I know that you're the ultimate non-prospect hugger. Like you do not care about that at all. So I'm curious to get your perspective of things.
Yeah. So again, I would be hesitant to trade Acuna, but I'm not leaving out Acuna. If that stops the deal, that's a bad job by Stearns, right? What do the Mets think, right? You just got Juan Soto, right? You're probably going to re-sign Pete Alonso. And this is a good sign for the Mets with Pete Alonso if Christian Walker goes to the Yankees, because that even puts less teams involved in Alonso. So if you get Alonso, right, your offense is already better than it was last year because you add Juan Soto and his, between 25 and 35 home runs, probably 30 to 35 home runs. Like you're getting the offense that you need. And this is not saying that Acuna is not going to be good. I really like Acuna. But the Mets need a top line starter. They're not going after Corbin Burns. Fried just got 8 years. Burns is going to get 9 or 10 years, probably close to $300 million. I'm not doing that. So Burns is out of the question. Right? We can have a conversation about Luis Castillo. You can take on that contract, $108 million left, and trade maybe a top 20 prospect and a lower level prospect. You don't have to give up a lot if you're going to take up all that money because the Mariners want to shed the payroll. So you would take on that contract. Fine. But again, I would be okay with Luis Castillo just to handicap everybody who's probably staying that. I think it's going to take 2 top 10 prospects. And if you believe the White Sox GM, he's looking for ready-to-go major league prospects, position players. Acuna obviously proved himself enough where you think he's going to be if not a great player, a very solid player, right? I don't want to lose Acuna, but you got to look at the overall roster of the New York Mets. What are they lacking the most? What was the problem last year, guys? Pitching. Pitching broke down in the playoffs. Pitching broke down for the New York Mets. This is what we need more than anything else. You do what you have to do. Now, is there certain guys I don't want to trade and I think they're off limits? I think there's probably 2 guys, Sproat and Gilbert. Everybody else is up for grabs in this deal for Crochet. And again, it might not even take that much because of the fact that we were talking about the Yankees are out with Max Fried. Right? They're not trading for Crochet. They're not going to give up Dominguez and Spencer Jones. They're not doing that because that's probably what they're going to have to give up.
Right.
They're not doing that. Especially where I think they're going to be. They need Dominguez at this point now. They're not doing that. And possibly Spencer Jones. Like there's a possibility that those 2 guys are going to be in the lineup for the Yankees next year. I'm not confident that they're going to go out and get Bellinger. Definitely not Tucker. And if they do get Christian Walker, again, that's solid, but I still don't think that's enough. But here we are. What could I say? Gilbert and Sproat is probably the untouchables. But again, we don't know exactly. We still don't have an idea of who does Stearns like in this farm system, right? He might not like Drew Gilbert. I know that it might be crazy to say. I think he likes Sproat. I think the top pitching prospects he don't mess with. So Sproat might be the only untouchable. Again, I do not think Stearns likes controllable pitchers that are young. This is a fact. This is his trend, right? Reclamation projects and younger pitchers. They're not going after Sasaki for kicks and giggles. He's 22 years old. That's why they're going after him. And even if the money was outrageous for Sasaki, the Mets would be in on him because he's that young. They're looking to get younger at the rotation. And in the back end of the rotation, you can go with the veterans and the reclamation projects. But you don't go for Clay Holmes, who is a reclamation project for a starter. You can't go with Montes, who's reclamation. Kodai Senga is fucking up in the air. And tell me that you're going to be okay with oh, well, we can't do this for Crochet. You're gonna need a top line starter if you're gonna have all those question marks. You just do.
So, a couple of things here in Andy Martino's interview that he did with Salicata, saying Jonathan Loaisiga is still drawing interest from the Mets. It's probably going to be a multi-year deal because there are other suitors in terms of competition there for Jonathan Loaisiga. That's probably what's holding up that report that we saw from Mike Rodriguez.
Okay.
A lot of optimism, more so than before on the Sean Manaea reunion as well. I really do think that we see Sean Manaea. And again, that would not hinder and take away the Mets' ability to trade for Crochet. You could see both of them in the rotation very easily. You'd have a 6-man rotation, and you'd have 3 lefties. That'd be 3 and 3 with obviously Peterson as well. So yeah, that's the latest on that. He also talked about Crochet. I got to listen to it. I don't want to listen to it right now while we're on the live stream, but again, I'm not giving away Sproat because I don't think you have to give away Sproat. I don't think that's what the White Sox are looking for. And if they are, then that's a separate discussion. But, I'm under the assumption that this trade can get done without having to include Sproat, which is the best case scenario. Now, everybody else is fair game at this point, right?
I agree.
But you know what? I also like Luis Angel Acuna. I like his projectability. I like what we saw in a very short sample size already at the major league level. And you know what? He is also versatile in terms of the middle infield position, but you can also throw him in an outfield position with his speed, and I'm sure he could adjust very quick. I know he doesn't have that experience quite just yet, right? At least at the magnitude, but I think that he is capable of making that transition. What I will say is that we went through our trade packages a couple weeks ago when these Garrett Crochet trade rumors were already starting up for the New York Mets, and we both gave our trade packages. Mm-hmm. And, we are not naive to the fact that this is going to take a hefty prospect capital return back to the White Sox. And Mets fans, please be prepared if the Mets are serious about this, and if it does happen, for you to look at the return and be like, should we really have done that? It's going to be that type of return in what I'm imagining, and especially if there are multiple teams involved. But for me, that's why I centered my hypothetical trade package around Jet Williams and Ronnie Mauricio being the headliners, because I like Luis Angel Acuna as well. And again, with the outfield scenario, Drew Gilbert being the natural outfielder makes sense as well. Although Drew Gilbert has been struggling, I also understand that fact. Arizona Fall League wasn't the best for him. He didn't have a great time in his 2024 campaign. But again, knowing the type of player that he is, the fire that he plays with, I like Drew Gilbert a lot. I've been on record saying that. So I also like Ronnie Mauricio a lot. And I don't want anybody to, get it twisted in terms of, me not believing in Ronnie Mauricio. I do. And I think his bat is going to be explosive at the major league level. If the Mets included him in a trade for Garrett Crochet, he would be the one that got away, in my humble opinion, unless he proved otherwise, in a different organization. That would be the one that got away, because I like everything that Ronnie Mauricio has to offer, and he has an explosive, elite arm in the field, right? The footwork, given his stature, the size, needs work, clearly. And that's the same issue for Mark Vientos, right? They're big dudes. So the footwork is going to be naturally off, but the arm strength is just immaculate. So yeah, man, we can have this debate all day long about which prospects we'd give up. We have our opinions about which prospects we would rather keep. There's a lot of people that would rather keep Jet Williams, and I understand that philosophy as well. But no matter what, the primary idea that we're trying to get across to you all is that, if we need a frontline starter, you're not going to say no to the trade. Given that, I think we can all agree on that. Yes, there's other avenues that you can go down, but when you take a look at an organization like the Mariners, they seem to be a little bit more stingy about their starting pitching, and it's not a guarantee that Luis Castillo is even going to be traded. Now, it would make sense to offload that contract so that they are able to do more things otherwise in free agency, etc. But again, it's not 100% certain. So if you're trying to sell this organization not to trade for Garrett Crochet when the opportunity presents itself, there may never be that next opportunity for that frontline ace, is basically what the thought process here, if I'm not mistaken. And that's what you're trying to convey too. I'm pretty sure of it, Rob. So again, I would say Jet Williams and Ronnie Mauricio, because it's going to take 2 top 10 prospects. Brandon Sproat, for me, what I've heard with how well and good of a season, right? I think across the board for Mets prospects, maybe outside of like a Jonah Tong and a Brandon Sproat and maybe a couple of other prospects scattered there in between, it was a relatively down year across the board for the New York Mets organization on the prospect front. So again, it's always a crapshoot. We say that like all the time. You say that as well, primarily, Rob, that you never know how these guys are going to pan out at the major league level. And by the way, I'm not sure if everyone or anyone heard in the chat that's watching this live right now with us, and we appreciate you as we're going an hour into the stream. Just a little bit of a note, Steve Cohen did sell off the Syracuse Mets and the Binghamton Rumble Ponies to a different third-party managing group. And again, that's nothing indicative about what's going to happen to the actual farm system. Yeah. The White Sox have done the same thing. And the Royals have done the same thing here recently within the past 100 days, from what I gathered. And again, that organization that, has now acquired Binghamton and Syracuse also holds about 36 to 37 other minor league teams. So again, they're still going to be affiliated with the New York Mets, but they're just under a different group. Yeah, yes. Management, exactly.
That's all it is. Yeah, it's management and basically in business operations, like, hire-ins, fire-ins, grounds crew, shit like that. Like all that is dealing with that. So the all that operations is getting paid by that management group. And this is, again, Steve Cohen's a businessman. He knows what he's doing. So this is not unique in any sense. But here's the interesting thing, like you were saying, Chris. What have Stearns talked about a lot late last season and especially this offseason? Ronnie Mauricio. It's been brought up a lot, and he spoke about him a lot. I think David Stearns likes Mauricio more than Jet Williams and more than Luisano Acuna. Right? We all understand that Acuna was traded here not under Stearns. Right? Jet Williams wasn't drafted by Stearns. I know Mauricio wasn't either, but the dynamic of Ronnie Mauricio when he came up was wonderful. We've seen the star power of Ronnie Mauricio, right? Acuna, we think he has it, but I don't think I think we all believe that Acuna is probably not going to be a huge home run guy. He's going to be a gap-to-gap guy, doubles machine, stealing bases. You know what Ronnie Mauricio is? A 5-tool player. He is a guy that is built like a monster. Luis Acuna is on the shorter end, right? He's not his brother. He probably won't be. Ronnie Mauricio could get to that Ronald Acuna level because of his size, because of just the jumping off his back, even though Acuna has that too. But Mauricio, I think, is more – I think there's more star power there. And again, you are not – look, if the White Sox want either Acuna or Mauricio, either one of those in that deal with Jet Williams, you do it. You know why? Because your infield is basically mostly set. Like, we all believe Pete Alonso's coming back. So say first base, third base, and shortstop is there. Even if you give up 2 middle infielders, there's still one left that is probably going to fight it out for Jeff McNeil or take the job. So, is anybody going to be upset if Acuna or Mauricio is gone and one of these guys are staying and probably be the second baseman? No, you're not, because that's great. And again, Jet Williams is going to be in the steal, guys. Let's all understand that. And again, there's not a lot of people talking about Jet Williams as untouchable now. You know why? Because they've seen a little bit of Acuna. They got a little hint of Mauricio, right? So, and again, Jet Williams, I think projects as a shortstop, and it's just not going to happen here, obviously. And Mauricio's shown you he can play third. I know Vientos is there now, but Mauricio did play second base, and Acuna did play second base. So there's options here. And this is why, with talking about the farm system, a lot can happen because, again, the Mets are not spending for Burns. Let's get that through our heads now. We all understand that, especially with the free deal. So the trade market's going to happen. And I don't think Luis Castillo, but again, the Seattle Mariners have to want to trade him. Remember that. That's the other issue, right? We know Crochet's on the market. This is why when people are like, oh, go get Luis Castillo. Yeah, we all agree. But the Mariners have to be willing to do it. Crochet's on the market. If Luis Castillo is not getting traded, Stearns can't, drive to Seattle and steal him away. You can't do that, right? That's why Crochet is probably more likely. So, and I know people in the chat right now saying Rob is wrong on Acuna. What did I say wrong about Acuna? I'm not saying trade Acuna. I'm not saying trade Mauricio. But what you need to get here, one of those guys are going with Jet Williams, right? And again, no matter who it is, see, here's the funny thing. This is the recency bias with Met fans, right? Because Ronnie Mauricio was hurt and didn't play, it's in their mind to forget. Because of Acuna was seen late in the season and in the playoffs, it's a recency bias. And again, we understand Acuna could be good, but I think Mauricio is going to be better.
Oh, I agree with that.
Because
and the reason why I said Mauricio instead of Acuna in there is obviously because I like Acuna, so it wouldn't really be. I mean, it's a tough decision, but again, I think that the White Sox would prioritize Mauricio over Acuna regardless. That's what I truly believe that as well. If they're trying to maximize the talent, right, in terms of the raw hitting abilities, they would be asking for Mauricio over Acuna if it came down to those two players.
Correct. But again, I don't think either one of us are going to be mad. Oh, I mean, we might be like, damn, it would have been nice to see him wearing the Mets uniform, but we know what we have to do here, right? You get Juan Soto, the offense, especially the prospects, the position players, it's just you can't play them all. And we keep on talking about that, Chris. And there's not enough Met fans that can't get it through their damn heads. It's not about being a prospect hugger or not a prospect hugger. You know where I stand, right? But last time I checked, how many more homegrown talent players do you need? Right? You got Alvarez, you got Vientos, Nimmo, Alonso's possibly going to come back. Right? I mean, we got these guys. There's a big possibility Drew Gilbert might be showing his face this year. Right? There's going to be somebody at second base, either whatever one of these guys is going to remain left, Acuna, Mauricio, Jet Williams. They're probably going to be here on this roster at some point. So you're going to have more than enough guys from your farm system that you developed on this roster. And Juan Soto, by the way.
I would love some more homegrown pitchers, though. I'm not going to lie. Like the Braves.
But you know what? That takes time. That takes development, right? That takes guys showing what they can do. And Sproat took a big jump, right? Again, this is another thing too, right? If you don't get a top-line starter, I'm sorry, guys. If you're going to be happy with the rotation, even if you get Manaea and Buehler, or if you get Sasaki, different story. But again, you can't wait for Crochet to be off the board and not go after Burns, and then you have to rely on Sasaki to choose you. That's way too much of a gamble. And David Stearns knows that. That's why they're in on Crochet. And we all know the Mets are not the favorites for Sasaki. You think it's someone on the West Coast. And that's the issue the Mets have fallen into. And again, if you don't get Crochet because you think you can get Sasaki, we know the Mets are probably not going to pay for Burns. You're going to be happy with Manaea, Buehler, and the rest of the rotation when I already talked about the question marks we already have. Sorry, guys. Manaea is not an ace. Please stop believing that. He's not. Can he be a solid number 2? Absolutely. Buehler can be. He was at one point an ace, but we don't know, right? He's probably, 2 years after Tommy John, he started to throw harder in the playoffs, and his stuff seemed like it came back alive in the playoffs, but you also don't know. So, now you're hoping for a guy to step up again. And we just don't know that. Well, why you don't get Juan Soto and hope for the best for the rest of the rest of the roster? Because again, great. We can score 6 runs a game. We're going to be giving up 7 runs a game. And that's the issue. Like, there's too much hope. And again, you can't lose out on Crochet because you think Sasaki is a possibility. Again, Sasaki's not about money. If it was about money, I think the Mets have a hell of a chance. But it's not. It's about Sasaki's choice.
Well, and also let's transition into that because there have been some latest reports around Sasaki from not only his agent, but also just people around the league. Jim Bowden was kind of chiming in on that front. And but before we get into the Sasaki, I wanted to just, so now with Fried off the board, the playing field of the aces, right? Or ace-like pitchers that we know of that are still available via trade or free agency is dwindling, right? It's dwindled. So you got Stearns, you've got Crochet, maybe you can throw in Castillo. Those are the 3 guys that we've heard reports surrounding that, could be available. I mean, Framber Valdez, they were going to take calls on him, but they're not, quote unquote, making him available. Nothing is imminent there. And then you have maybe a couple pitchers in the Miami Marlins organization. I know there's a lot of smoke around Jesus Luzardo. Again, he's also not really a sure thing. The projectability is definitely there, but you take a look at the recent history, it's just not, a sure thing with Luzardo. So the options are kind of dwindling here. And there are some teams, or there is a team that is going to make somebody available that we aren't talking about right now. And I think that we can project that out. But again, in general, the options are dwindling. Let's talk about Sasaki, though, because there are new reports, and his agent said this. And I was kind of shocked that he said this, right? Because again, it's not about the money with Sasaki, it's about the fit. And so we've heard 2 things come out of this whole Sasaki, I wouldn't say debacle, but just the story that's developing and how uncertain this is, given that this is IFA money and not just straight up a contract like Yamamoto, is the fact that, one, Bowden was talking about something of the nature of Sasaki wants to go to a place where they develop pitching and they have a coaching staff that is set up to do that. And Jeremy Hefner's name, for one reason or another, was mentioned in that category. So automatically, with Juan Soto coming to your team, fit-wise and winning-wise, you could make that a sales pitch, right? Come to our team. We just got Juan Soto. We're going for it. But also, they just got Desi Druskull from the Yankees, assistant pitching coach, right?
Yep.
They just got, or they've had Jeremy Hefner for so long that everybody around the league, for one reason or another, whether us fans or not see it, they value Jeremy Hefner. So that's one thing on the Sasaki front. The second thing was coming out of directly from his agent is that he was saying a smaller market could be a softer landing spot for Sasaki rather than a bigger market, given the transition into the MLB, right? And just the whole, everything else surrounding that. So I'm not sure if I buy that. Maybe he's just trying to get some of the smaller market teams involved and just give them a little bit of hope. But I don't know, man. What do you think of that? Because that kind of shocked me.
Yeah, and he also talked about he wants Sasaki to be, have a comfortability factor, and that probably leads to a small market and all that stuff. There was, his agent was putting like all types of flight details from every part of the country to Japan and stuff like that. And it's a lot different now with private jets, and all that stuff. So I know time is not much different, but it's easier to get to where it was 10 from now than 15, 20 years ago when Japanese players were coming back. But again, the Jim Wolf, the agent, is not really fighting for extra money here. So what I believe he's saying is just what his client wants, right? I don't think that makes anybody more of a favorite than the Dodgers or the Padres or the Giants, right? You just have to assume the California teams are just have the advantage because money's not relatable and geography probably is. And again, you can go to the Giants and be forgotten, all right? That's, even though it's a quote unquote big market, it's small, right? The Dodgers just won a world championship. how much pressure is really on him? You got Otani there, you got Yamamoto there. It's what pressure, right? And you go to San Diego, which is kind of the irrelevant team in Southern California. So that, is probably the least amount of pressure. So, and you got Darvish there. So I don't know. Like, I think anybody can get him. Like the Pittsburgh Pirates can get him. There was some talk about them getting him. He can probably go there. And again, this guy's leading up to the bigger contract, right? So if he wants to be in a small market on a bad team, they can also trade him as well, this small market team, to get prospects back for him in 2-3 years. So when he's leading up to free agency. So I don't know. Like, if you're a Mets fan and leaning on the Mets getting Sasaki, and I still believe Crochet over the next probably few days is going to be traded. The GM basically told you this multiple times, and people are like, "Oh, there's no urgency for the White Sox to trade him." Yes, because again, go back to last trade deadline, guys. Do you know the reason why Garrett Crochet didn't get traded at the deadline? Garrett Crochet told you himself, if he gets traded, he is not pitching in the playoffs. That's why he didn't get traded. He specifically said that. Because there's no team that's going to trade for him. And obviously it's going to be a contender. Because you know what Crochet also said? I want an extension if I'm traded. No team is going to extend him during the middle of a season after they just traded assets for him. It's just not happening. And he wouldn't pitch in the playoffs last year. So you're not going to extend him midway through the year. He's not pitching in the playoffs, as he said to reporters. That's why he wasn't traded. So you think they're going to keep him until the trade deadline? No. The offseason is the best time to trade him because more teams will be involved and teams are more willing to extend him. And you can extend him now before the season starts. And now he's willing to pitch as much as you need him to. That's the difference, guys. Right? And Ken, I agree, he's a selfish scumbag. 100%. But again, these guys now protect that arm. And for people who continue to talk about innings, the White Sox and Crochet agreed collectively that it's in the best interest of the player to stay healthy and for the White Sox, for Crochet to stay healthy so they don't lose the possibility of trading him and for Crochet to get a payday. They were both together on this. So I mean, I don't know what else you guys want. Again, it's what's available for the Mets right now, right? Luis Castillo might be available, might not. We still haven't heard enough about that. So people who keep on talking about Castillo, which I would be fine with, we still don't know that's a possibility. So us talking about that is just probably opinionated at this point. It's not factual of reports. We know Crochet's available. We know Sasaki will be posted. But tell me one thing, Chris, and everybody in the chat, who is more likely to be a Met? Garrett Crochet or Roki Sasaki?
Oh, Crochet, easily.
Okay, there you go.
I'm not fully buying the Sasaki hype to the Mets. I'm not. I think that there's again, we talked about, there's a lot of hurdles for multiple different reasons to bring him into this organization. And quite simply, if you're talking about the sure thing, right? The sure thing more so would be Garrett Crochet, right? Yeah. And so 100% agreed with that, because again, it just gets tricky with the IFA money. It gets tricky with the deals that the Mets have already agreed upon and are in place with the 2025 international free agent pool and Elian Pena. Again, the age differential there. Of course, if the Mets got a good feeling that they could go ahead and land Sasaki, they would pull that offer without a doubt. You're talking about a 22, almost 23-year-old phenom pitcher versus a 17-year-old who's not going to be, making an impact for your organization. We are full aware of that. But again, just with how many teams are going to be involved, with the uncertainty of what Sasaki actually wants in terms of the fit, not only money-wise with the signing bonus that he's going to get, but also just the fit in terms of developmental factors, geographical factors, all of that. It's just too risky to try to bank on that. So while I hear Jim Bowden loud and clear, again, I cannot buy into the hype of Sasaki potentially becoming a New York Met. But yeah, we are here live with you all. I apologize if I keep looking down. I'm constantly refreshing my phone because it does seem like the stove is heating up here on this lovely December 10th. It's a Tuesday, the second day of the winter meetings. And yeah, we've seen a Max Fried 8-year deal go down while we are doing this live right now, while we are doing the live. So if you are just tuning into this live stream, go back and rewind. We had the whole Yankees discussion and the Max Fried deal. And now we're trying to pivot in terms of what the Mets are going to do for their actual rotation. Now, again, I know that this isn't one of our talking points here, but Andy Martino and a lot of other sources out there are stating the fact that the Mets are interested and optimistic about bringing Sean Manaea back on a deal. And as Rob said, and as I'm going to agree with what Rob said, Sean Manaea is not a number one pitcher, right? He's not an ace for an organization. I think that we are all well aware of that. He had a beautiful bounce back season last season in a time period where it was very uncertain if he was going to make his way back into the rotation long term, given he was a reliever and had a lot of success in the second half of that 2023 season for the Giants. But you know what? At this point, as I mentioned in our live stream yesterday, I'm inclined to believe that however you shake it, right? Whichever combination you want to throw out there, I'm inclined to believe that the Mets are going to sign at least 2 more pitchers, if not 3 more pitchers, right? Walker Buehler is still out there for the taking as well. He's a hybrid guy that you can put in the rotation. He has that upside. He has electric stuff. We just haven't seen it on a consistent basis because he's been injured. But we did see it in the World Series and in that playoff run for the Dodgers. But he's also an option to go into the bullpen as we are trying to figure out the bullpen for the New York Mets. But again, it cannot just be Sean Manaea. I think that we are all in favor, or not in favor, but in agreement on that, right? If you get me Sean Manaea and if you trade for Garrett Crochet, boom, I'm ready to rock. We're going into 2025 and we are ready for business, right? That is a fact. But, you know, and I will stick by this statement and the fact that the Mets are going to get a top line starter. I would be shocked if they didn't, Rob. I would be shocked. And I kind of wanted to transition that because we talked about this briefly. And I know that this isn't about Sasaki. This isn't about Crochet. But with that free deal, I know that we both believe it's a long shot for the Mets to actually be interested in a Corbin Burnes, because right now with what Free just got, Burnes is going to make Garrett Cole money. We're talking about probably a 9-year deal, perhaps even 10. Well, Burnes is what, 30 going on 31? I would say probably 8 or 9 years, higher AAV for sure. And you're talking around 36, 37, 38, upwards of $40 million a year. And so let's just play it this way. Let's do 9 times 37. That's 9 for 333, which beats out Yamamoto for being the highest paid pitcher in history, because Yamamoto took that away from Garrett Cole last offseason, right? So maybe they go even, let's just say 326 if they want to play that game. 326 divided by 9 would be $36.2 million AAV. That might get it done. It might not get it done. I don't know. However you want to shake it out, it obviously depends on the years. But again, do we really think the Mets are going to commit over $300 million for Corbin Burnes? You know what though, Rob? If Cohen told Stearns that he would want to do it,
correct,
I would do it. I would do it because the Mets are clearly going for it in the next 4 to 5 years. That's their window, right? And again, they're going to have Juan Soto probably for more than that, I would assume. I don't see any way he opts out, right? And I don't see that it going down that route. I truly believe that with that contract and the way that it's structured. But our confidence level is one thing about the Mets actually doing it. But if Steve Cohen is like, listen, we need a top line starter, we are running out of options, we need to go ahead and land Burns because let's say, the White Sox want too much that we don't want to give up, or something else happens on the Garrett Crochet trade sweepstakes. If Steve Cohen is just like, we got to get this done, are we going to complain?
No.
You're not going to complain.
Absolutely not. And that's the thing. Like, again, I don't care about the years and money. If, again, Cohen already told you he doesn't care, right? Clearly he's starting to, he doesn't care this year, given what he gave to Soto. I feel like, look, I want Corbin Burns. I said my plan A is Burns, Soto, and Alonso. That's my plan A, right? And that's going to cost a tremendous amount of money. Now, I think the way this money's going with starting pitching and just players in general, it's seeming less likely that it can be my plan A. And that's that's the issue that I'm continuing to have. That's why I think the trade for a top line starter is possible. But again, if Burns is smart, and I think Boris is not an idiot here, Burns is not going to sign until after Sasaki signs, because Crochet is probably going to be traded by then. Sasaki's going to sign with a team, and whoever's holding the bag that didn't get those other two pitchers are going to be desperate for Burns, which is going to raise his price. So Burns is not going to sign until probably mid-January, in my opinion, after Sasaki signs. Because wouldn't that make sense? Right? Maybe unless teams are willing to go that price already, but why did the Yankees go after Fried, right? Burns is out of their price range, which we all seemed like that was the case. They clearly didn't think that, again, only earlier today, the Mets and Yankees were the favorites to land Crochet. So something went wrong with the Yankees and the White Sox in trade talks. Because why did they pivot to Fried all of a sudden right away and give an outrageous contract to Max Fried?
Well, I don't know if they pivoted, because they had those meetings set up and it went well, apparently. That was reported a couple of days ago. So I'm not sure if it was a pivot.
But they were in on Crochet, according to the reports, and these were legit reports by like Rosendahl and other reporters. The Yanks and the Mets were seemingly the favorite for Crochet. So what changed with the Yankees and White Sox that made them ultimately sign Max Fried to an outrageous contract? Because even the Red Sox, who were clearly desperate as well, didn't want to go there. So, and that's the other thing, right? There's an issue here. This is an issue, right? We're okay with giving Burns 9 and 10 years because we know what we need. You're looking at a 4 to 5 year window with Lindor, Alonso, most likely, Nimmo, and obviously you're gonna have Juan Soto until the end of time, with hopefully your younger core that is going to be, taking over the reins after Lindor gets older, and Nimmo and Alonso, the Vientos, Alvarez, either Acuna, Mauricio, Gilbert, stuff like that. This is where you are. And oh, by the way, Chris, while you were talking, David Stearns is on Mets Hot Stove, right? Well, a couple of minutes ago, and he said, we are having a lot of discussions. It seems like some are beginning to move forward, but it's really tough to tell. So again, discussions for free agents, for trades, is probably everything in a nutshell he's talking about. I think tomorrow, I would be shocked if Crochet is not traded by the end of the deadline. It's going to be deadline, winter meetings. So again, it's a preference here for David Stearns, right? We know David Stearns got the deep pockets because of Steve Cohen. He can easily sign Burns, right? They can clearly get Sasaki just based on if he picks them, but that's well up in the air. I think it's more likely Burns or Crochet's a Met than Sasaki. So Sasaki's a pipe dream. That'd probably be the best case scenario for the Mets, because they can still land Crochet and get Sasaki. They could literally do that. I don't think they would, but it's a possibility. But again, there is no incentives here for the White Sox to not trade Crochet when pitchers are coming off the board and teams are becoming more and more desperate. And the Mets aren't desperate for Crochet yet, because Burns is still out there and Sasaki's still out there. And don't give me Manaea, don't give me Bueller, don't give me Flaherty. They're not aces. They could be a number 2. And that's if everything goes right. So I just have to say that. Again, this is a situation where we know the Mets are in on Crochet. We have no idea about Burns. Again, nothing gets leaked out from the Mets, right? If we hear in Crochet, the Mets were willing to tell somebody that for whatever reason. It came out somehow. Now, it could have been from the White Sox, but again, it seems like the Mets keep everything, in their little circle, and nothing really comes out. There's a reason why this came out. There's a reason why late Sunday you started to hear the rumors that the Mets are making a push for Soto and starting to become the favorites, right? Those started to get leaked out when things are getting closer, right? The Jonathan Loaiza thing came out of nowhere, and the Mets seem like they're in on him, so you think it's getting closer. The Crochet news tells me that the Mets are more in on Crochet than people actually realize. And again, you don't have to like Crochet. You can tell me about the innings, but he played on the worst team in baseball with a team that know they were going to trade him. They needed to keep him healthy. That's why they limited his innings. And he also wanted to limit innings. This was an agreement between him and the team, which is beneficial for both of these private entities. Just so everybody knows that.
So knowing what we know right now, like with 100% certainty with who's available, right? With 100% certainty, this is not including Castillo. This is not including any other name that is possibly, right, or that we haven't heard of on the trade block. These are the three Mets options with everything remaining consistent. These are the three options. You go sign Corbin Burns. That's option one. You trade for Garrett Crochet. That's option two. Either way, it's either high money value that you're giving up or probably more prospects than a lot of people would like to give up. Pick your poison. Correct. Option three, again, is a philosophical option. Not a bad one per se. It's not, quote unquote, the sexiest thing that you can do in terms of convincing your fan base after you just got Juan Soto. But you could go ahead and go 3 for 3 and get as many arms in here as possible to have this cycle of just this merry-go-round of arms that could be flexible for both the rotation and the bullpen. You can go get Eovaldi, Buehler, and Manaea. You can get those three. You'd have to get all three.
Again, yeah, they would have to pivot to that. They would have no choice. They wouldn't be able to fill a rotation, right? So they would have to do that. But again, you're going to pay these, again, pitching market's expensive. So you're paying hopeful number twos and probably 3 and 4s in your rotation, basically number 2 probably type salaries because of the price tags of these pitchers. So you're overpaying for 3s and 4s when you could have got Burns for, yes, a lot more money, for another $10 million more per year, but you know what he is. You could get Crochet, you know he can be an ace. You can get Luis Castillo if he's available, because he can be he is a top line starter.
You just aren't tied in long term. That's the only difference.
Sure, but again, your hope, are we going for 2025, or are we just getting Juan Soto and having a good old grand old party for Juan Soto only? Again, this is why we were excited about Juan Soto, but we got serious and down the business because there's too much needed on this team to add to get to the level. We have to be better than the Dodgers. Our goal now is to get past the NLCS and get to the World Series and hopefully win it. Anything less than NLCS is a disaster, is a problem. This is the problem. This is the issue. Again, the Mets set themselves up. This is not Stearns' fault, but they set themselves up to having a ton of holes in the rotation. Even these short-term deals are leaving you holes for next year for more or less. There's less pitchers available next year than there is this year. There's a lot more available. We talked about this, Valdez. And even if these guys that the Mets get, there's probably going to be opt-outs after the first year with probably a Buehler or a Pivetta or Evaldi. There's probably going to be an opt-out after the first year. So if they pitch well, they're going back to free agency once again. The Mets are going to have holes in their rotation again, and now you're hoping for one of your prospect pitchers to be an ace. And if they're not, you lost out on Sasaki, you didn't get Crochet, you didn't get Castillo, you didn't get Burns, and you didn't get Fried. So now you're still looking for an ace in 2026. Oh, yeah, and by the way, Lindor's another year older. Alonso's a little bit older. Nimmo's a little bit older. You just wasted another freaking year of these guys. Again, we don't know how the season's going to turn out, but guess what the Mets are going to need at the trade deadline, guys? So now you're going to have to give up prospects anyway at the deadline to get a starter, because the same fans that don't want to trade these prospects are going to be bitching and moaning when we're going to need a top-line starter at the deadline, and they're going to be pushing and bitching and moaning to get it, and you're going to have to overpay because there's going to be competition for that one starter, top-line starter that might be available, and you hope you get him. And now you're going to probably have to give 3-4 prospects instead of the probably 2 that you now have to give up. And by the way, Jim Duquette on Mets Hot Stove proposed a trade for Crochet. And again, when Mets Hot Stove starts talking about this, it's a lot more real than some people might want to believe.
Well, I think Crochet is going to be a Met. I tend to agree. Especially if we get this passing bomb that Burns is signing a deal with the Boston Red Sox, Crochet is a New York Met. I would have to imagine.
And you're probably going to be happy with what you're not going to be happy what they give up most of the time, because, it's still prospects that you would love to see. But again, you're probably going to get a better deal than you did if these guys didn't go. These teams would have been involved. So Garrett Crochet trade, Jimmy Duquette, this is what he said. Gilbert, Acuna, Parada.
Gilbert, yeah, you do that. Yeah, I like Drew Gilbert. I like Drew Gilbert, but you got to do it.
I really like Drew Gilbert. Again, when we got Drew Gilbert from the Astros, that was the first guy I talked about, right? I followed him in college. I know a lot about this kid. He's going to be good. But again, you send him to the AL Central to the White Sox. That's probably not going to be good for another 3 to 5 years. Who cares? By the time Gilbert is playing for the Sox and be good, he's going to be a free agent. So the Mets should sign him then.
So I have to. So like, we can't have it both ways, Mets fans. We can't complain that they need a top line starter, and then we can't complain also that they're not, that they're trading too much for Crochet, right? Again, it's a long shot that the Mets are involved in Corbin Burns. Again, with Steve Cohen, I wouldn't rule it out, because there have been some MLB Network analysts, and again, they're analysts, so they don't really have as much insider information as the actual reporters do, and they kind of thrown out the idea that they still think Corbin Burns could be a possibility for the New York Mets. John Heyman recently said he's heard zero smoke about the Mets being linked to Burns, but again, we know that's the Mets' biggest asset, is their ability to keep their cards close to them. So maybe they're playing it close to them, and they just swoop in with an offer out of nowhere and go back into another bidding war with Boston, this time for Corbin Burns, which is going to be hard to do. Again, it's just a little bit unrealistic, and people are not going to like the years on that deal. So the pivot point to that is just sending the prospects to Garrett Crochet. And if you're also unwilling to do that, given the unlikelihood of a Burns deal, then you are automatically signing up for option 3 that I just told you all about probably about 3 minutes ago. Like, that is what you are signing up for. We cannot be playing both sides here. You're either giving up the money or you're giving up the prospects. That's what it is.
I think most Met fans would love to just get Burns and the money, and you keep your prospects. But again, we're talking realistically here. The reports are Mets and then Crochet, possibly Castillo if he's available, and that's it, top line starter wise. And again, Chris, I got to ask, because some of the people in the chat are going crazy about Crochet. Crochet is a top line starter. He is, right? Just because there's not a track record, his stuff and what he's projected to be is an ace. And even if you want to put him as a number 2, there is nobody the Mets get other than Burns or Castillo that is anywhere near the stuff that Crochet would have.
Just go look at his Savant page. I'll actually post this in my chat. I'm going to copy the link to his Savant page. I know that a lot of people aren't really into the whole, hold on, if you hear a noise,
Copy
it's
the
just
link
the
to a Savant page.
duplicate of the stream. Let me post that in the chat if you guys haven't taken a look at that already. There's the Savant page right there. If you want to take a look at this together, for those of you all that are clicking on that Savant page, look at it. The velo, the fastball run value, right? That's just measuring how much his fastball alone moves. And again, with the velocity, it makes it tough. How tall is he? He's 6'6". This guy is 6'6". That is a just advantageous height. He puts hitters away in the 98th percentile with the strikeout rate. Average major league strikeout rate is 22.2%. He's at 35.1 in the 2024 campaign. Walk rate was 2.9% below league average. So he has control of his pitches. So I get the, and again, I will also play devil's advocate here as well for those people that are pushing back a little bit, because again, it's valid, right? To be concerned about a guy that has been a reliever, and I'm not naive to this. I understand what the thought process here is that, you know, he's a reliever turned starter. We see a 1-year sample size of 146 innings. Can he do this consistently if you extend him? Will he hold up? I get that he's 25 years old, going on 26. Like, you can look at it that way 100%. But if we are also all in agreement that we need a top line starter, you know, and we see the intangibles, not even the intangibles, just the pure stuff and statistics that we just read off right there. At this point, with the options dwindling, you might have to take the chance. You might just have to take the chance. And again, it is a risk. All these pitchers, and Rob, also, you'd be the first one to admit, I know it, that any pitcher that you sign or trade for and give up a massive haul for, whether it's prospect or money capital, there's risks associated with it backfiring. There is, naturally.
Anybody, any trade, any contract, any pitcher you bring in here are a risk, right? People sort of Clay Holmes, and this has been a trend, right? Why everybody's like, oh, Garrett Crochet didn't pitch a lot of innings. Well, Seth Lugo didn't either. But everybody wanted him to make him a starter, but the Mets never did. But there was a lot of fans who did, right? There's a trend. Michael King didn't pitch a lot of innings for the Yankees, who was mostly a bullpen guy. They made him into a starter late in the season in 2023, and then they traded him for Juan Soto, that the Padres made him a starter, right? Hicks was a reliever with outstanding stuff. All these guys have outstanding stuff, right? Teams are starting to change their motto because they don't want to pay an outrageous amount of money for starting pitchers that are 30-plus years old. So they're turning these guys. That's why the Mets signed Clay Holmes to possibly be a starter who has stuff that they believe can be a starter possibility, right? I don't agree with that. But again, this is a trend around baseball. And everybody trusts David Stearns, right? Well, if he believes in Garrett Crochet, why don't you believe in him then? I'm not saying this. I'm not saying this just for the hell of it. I like Crochet, and you could do a lot worse. I'm sorry. I would rather have Crochet over Manaea, Bueller, Pivetta, Flaherty, because they're not number ones. They're at best number two if everything goes right. So again, you're paying $25 to $26 million for Sean Manaea, who's probably a number 3, at best a number 2. And you still don't have that ace. And don't tell me you don't need an ace, guys, because at the end of the day, the two teams that were in the World Series had an ace, right? Somebody stepped up for those teams. We did not have anybody step up when we needed the pitching most, right? As much as I love Manaea, he broke down, right? He threw a tremendous amount of innings. The first time in a long time. He hasn't thrown that many innings since he was in Oakland. All right. So let's not act like, any of these guys. And again, Burns is the obvious choice for all the Met fans. Money is whatever, but it doesn't seem like the choice for the Mets.
Burns, and you asked me who I want, Burns or Crochet. Burns. I'm taking Burns. You Absolutely. Even asked me who I want, Castillo or Crochet. I know you might disagree, but I'm taking Castillo. But again,
agree. But I agree. I would, because Castillo is not going to cost a lot. asset wise, and his deal is going to be a lot cheaper than anybody else.
Right.
What he has left on his contract, I'm on board with that. But again, we're talking about reality here. What's available right now? There was one report that the Mariners might be looking into trading Castillo. There hasn't been much smoke with that Castillo situation. So again, this is the problem. We can't wait for Castillo to be available. Crochet will be off the board. Sasaki, and again, the Mariners are also not going to trade Castillo until Sasaki makes his decision and Crochet's off the board. Because again, there's going to be teams holding the bag that didn't get those guys and are going to be desperate.
Yeah,
and that's the issue.
At the end of the day, I can see, I would say maybe tonight's a little bit too early, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if a Burns deal gets done and then shortly after that, you are hearing Mets are in on Crochet and they're closing in on a deal. I mean, that could be as early as tomorrow. It could be tonight. It could even be tonight. Yeah. I mean, I know we're an hour 45 into the stream. I mean, I don't know what you got going on. I'll probably, if something happens with the Mets, I'll probably try to toss up a live. I do have a video coming out, by the way, later tonight, guys, on a free agent target from the bat perspective, not named Pete Alonso that I got coming out, but we'll see, man. I think things are going to quickly progress because you know what I think, Rob? I'm getting the sense that the Boston Red Sox are very desperate.
Yep.
That's what I'm getting the sense of. So, but the other team that we haven't talked about that's involved in all of this is the team that Corbin Burns is presumably going to leave in the Baltimore Orioles. Could they swoop in and also be players with their farm system for, you know, a guy like Garrett Crochet as well, alongside a team like the Cubs or whoever else is involved, the Phillies? I mean, maybe, but I really do think that Burns to the Red Sox is mostly a sure thing.
Oh, here we go.
From what we're hearing. What? Here we go. What?
No, my Wi-Fi just crapped out. I froze.
Oh.
And you froze, and I heard you talking, and then you stopped. But I know you were talking. Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's my Wi-Fi because mine just.
No, I already have my Wi-Fi signal going crapping out. But yeah, sorry.
No, anyways, I'm like, I truly do believe, right, the Burns to the Red Sox smoke is real. I think we could see that as early as tonight, to be honest with you, because they're going to offer this guy the moon. They really are. And I think that they would rather go down that route from their side of things than trading their farm system.
Yep.
Because they're still going to need those prospects to fill out their roster more so than the Mets will with their prospects. That's the difference in the situation between the Mets and the Red Sox right now in who's prioritizing a signing versus a trade. Yep. So again, I know it's very hard to keep up with. There's a lot of fluidity here in terms of the reports that we're hearing and sort of just the makeup of all these teams and who's involved. But again, if I had to just predict the way it's going to play out, it would be Burns to the Red Sox. And then shortly after that, the Mets are going to be very aggressive in bringing Garrett Crochet to this team. And people are just going to have to live with it at that point, I guess. I don't know.
But again, here's the problem that Met fans are not understanding, right? We're talking about Crochet because there's smoke. When there's smoke, what is it saying? There's fire, all right? When there's smoke, there's fire. There has been no smoke with the Mets. The Red Sox lost out on Fried to the Yankees, right? If Fried would have went to the Giants or the Padres, I don't think I don't think the Yankees would have went that far, but I think Boston might have still been desperate, but there might have not been, like a Hail Mary for the Red Sox to do everything they can to get Burns, right? They lost out on Soto and Fried, two of their targets already, right? They're desperate. Their fans are going nuts right now, right? I follow enough of the sports content creators for the Red Sox, and they're going ape shit, and all the comments are Red Sox fans, obviously. They're going crazy. They're not happy with their team right now and their GM and their owner, right? I mean, it's not like they haven't tried. They've been trying. But they got
Right.
outbid by the Mets and the Yankees now for 2 players they targeted. So Burns is probably going to be a Red Sox, which again is good for the Mets because that's one less team that is in on Crochet. Again, the Red Sox were supposedly in on Crochet along with the Mets and the Yankees, but the GM and the president were on one of the shows and specifically said they're not trading Anthony, who's their number 1 overall top prospect outfielder. They're not trading him. So guess what? That's why they probably pivoted to Fried and now Burns, because they're probably out of the running for Crochet. Now the Yankees signing Fried. Now, does that mean that the Yankees are out on Crochet? You would assume so, right? So we heard the Reds early on in before the winter meetings that they were in on Crochet. We haven't heard that anymore for whatever reason. And
Who is that?
Like the Reds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and you would think the Philly. You talked about the Phillies. I'm not sure about the Phillies. I don't know what the Phillies are doing because they're looking to now. They do have Bohm. They do have a couple of already major leaguers that they're willing to trade. Castellanos, Bohm. I mean, Castellanos, they would have to pay the money to the White Sox, but Bohm is still under contract, still on his rookie deal. So they're not doing anything. But you would think that the White Sox, like Castellanos is getting older. Bohm is going to be a free agent, I think, in 2 years. Like the White Sox aren't benefiting much from those players, unless the Phillies give up 2 more top prospects, and then the White Sox might take that. But right now, we haven't really heard much about the Phillies and Crochet right now. It's been Mets. And this is not just leaning towards Mets hot stove and the Mets reporters. This has been multiple reports from national writers that have been saying this. And with Sasaki so much up in the air and not going to sign until a month from now, the Mets can't wait because all likelihood Burns is going to be gone by the next day or two to Boston, most likely. Where you going? Where are you going for a pitcher? And stop giving me Manaea and Buehler and Flower. That's not enough. That is not good enough. You can't get Juan Soto and throw a bunch of guys that are number 3s, hopefully number 2, with the hope of Kodai Senga actually pitching because he hasn't touched the ball yet and started throwing anything, which is already concerning to me. Too much question marks and hopefulness for a rotation when you just gave Juan Soto all that damn money. And probably Alonso.
I guess SNY article about what David Stearns said on this topic. Stearns told reporters on Tuesday night at the winter meetings that he'd be open to moving on from some of the Mets' top prospects if the deal were to present itself this winter. I think we have to be, he said, in the right deal. We have to look to see where there are players who immediately make us better or have control and things like that. Do you know who that is? That's Garrett Crochet. He has control. So I wouldn't close the door on it at all. You're never looking to trade your top prospects. We like the top of our system quite a bit. We think it's a good group. Many of them can potentially help us quickly at the big league level, so I can't say we're looking to do it, but I'm not going to close the door on it. So that is a very big indicator to me, saying in a nice way, because David Stearns is awesome in the way he speaks, right? He has a very professional way of stating things, but that to me is the biggest indicator of basically saying, you know what, these prospects are great, but with what we've just been saying on this stream, we need to get that guy that has controllability, that can make an impact for us right away, which is Garrett Crochet. With everything that David Stearns just said in that article points right to Garrett Crochet.
Correct. 100%. 100%. This is David Stern in a nutshell. Exactly what he's looking for. And once again, right, this is not, again, if they get Crochet, they're going to have to sign at least 1 or 2 more starters. So you would think it would be Manaea most likely. There's been a lot of momentum with Manaea and the Mets, so you still think that's a possibility? That would be 5 starters. If you're looking for a 6th starter, you're probably going to get a journeyman type of guy, right? A Jose Quintana type. I don't think you're going to get a Buehler.
I think you could still. I think
Pivetta might be likely.
A 3-year deal for Pivetta over a 1-year deal for Buehler?
I don't think Buell's getting a 1-year deal.
1 year, 2-year with an opt-out, a player opt-out to the first one. Similar structure to Manaea last year.
Then that's a rotation you could talk about.
Oh, yeah, you could. Crochet, Manaea, Buehler, get it done, David Stearns, and we will not be complaining any longer. Nobody should be complaining at that point. I actually have a question for you, Rob, because you know, with the team that is sort of in a sticky situation, right? And they're talking about trading away Carlos Correa, perhaps. You know, the Twins have been sort of open about that. I like this comment. I like some of the names in MEZ's comment. I'm trying to go to the comment. He said Montgomery. No thanks on Montgomery. Again, if that's a way you can offload McNeil, which again, I don't think is possible, but if that's a way you can offload McNeil, okay. But again, the Diamondbacks have no need for McNeil, so that's a pipe dream. No on Montgomery. But he mentions in here, I can't, MEZ, I'm sorry, I can't find this comment, but I like Pablo Lopez. I do. I know he had a down 2024 campaign. He posted north of a 4 ERA. The advanced metrics with him in the FIP category have always been great, and he's been consistently a workhorse. You look at 190 plus innings and 180 plus innings respectively in 2023 and 2022, and he had a really good 2023 campaign. So you know what? Pablo Lopez, if it gets to a point where they make him available for trade, I do like that name a lot. But again, we just have not heard anything solidified on that market for Pablo Lopez, unfortunately.
Yeah, and look, we need three starters still, right? We got 3 so far, technically 4 if you want to count Clay Holmes and Kodai Senga. You know, it's 3 starters right now. I still don't believe Clay Holmes is going to be in this rotation. Again, I'd be shocked if he pitches well. You're going to have to throw him in the rotation if he pitches well during spring. But I still believe at least 2 pitchers the Mets are still going to get, at least 2. Again, you can tell me any combination you want. There is no combination better than Garrett Crochet or any of the pitchers we have been talking about, Manaea, Buehler, Pivetta, Flaherty, go on and on, Evaldi. So it's, again, and you know what? Yankee fans are starting to talk now, right? You know, some Yankee fans are kind of excited about Max Fried, yet they're not talking about the overpay. But then you hear all the Yankee fans, this is an overpay. You overpay for a guy that has recent injuries, who has a ton of, I'm sorry, I was just looking at it when you were talking, Chris. I apologize. Just bringing it up because there was a Yankee fan that texted me and be like, why do we pay for Fried but not willing to pay for a Hall of Fame guy in Soto? I agree. So, and that's why it doesn't make sense. So I'm sorry. I was talking to my friend that's a Yankee fan that I work with.
It's a valid point. It's a valid point.
It is. That's why it doesn't make sense. So again, when it comes to the Mets, realistically, my better rotation involves, now again, Burns, Castillo, Crochet, right? That seems to be the options here, as Sasaki too. But I'm still leaving Sasaki out of this. I don't believe it at all, right? Those 3 guys can be an ace for the Mets if they get any of those guys. Burns is a free agent, obviously. That would be the easy choice because it's only money. Castillo, you would think can be available, right? I believe he might be. But when will he officially be on the trade block? Because this is what I'm talking about, guys. If you lose out on Crochet, and again, some people might be happy about that, and Burns signs with the Red Sox, and Crochet goes elsewhere, now you hope Castillo is available. Because if he's not, there's basically nothing left at the top of the pitching market that you're going to get. So now you're going to have to sign Manaea, which is fine. Maybe Evaldi, maybe Buehler, probably 2 or 3. Most likely 2, but probably 3. So what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Right? You hear the Yankee fans bitching that they overpaid for Fried, but wouldn't go the extra mile for Soto, who's a Hall of Famer. You want the Mets to pay all that money for Juan Soto, make your offense better, looking like you're going to sign Alonso too, so your lineup is going to be damn good, and you're going to half-ass a rotation. hoping for a top line, one of those pitchers to step up to be the ace of the staff. Manaea did that, but can we be honest there, guys? He still pitched to a 3.5, 3.6 ERA here, right? Come on. Like, that's really good. But we're talking about in the Mets rotation last year, there was nothing else. He just pitched better than everybody else on the Mets. Manaea would not be an ace on probably most teams in Major League Baseball, unless you're a really bad team. And the Mets going into the season were projected to be a very bad team. Manaea just were better than Severino. And Kodai Senga didn't pitch. So, and again, if Kodai Senga was healthy and pitching, and the Mets already told you Manaea is not an ace by pitching Senga in game ones over Manaea. So that's what they believe in Manaea. Now, they'll probably still pay Manaea, I believe, because I think he's good, really good. But don't give me this nonsense that Manaea is an ace or even a top-line starter, because I think he can be a number 2, but I think that's still pushing it. The Mets told you during the playoffs that they would rather start Kodai Senga when Manaea was available to pitch. That's what they told you. That, I would rather have Kodai Senga pitching game 1 than Manaea, who was actually fully rested. So the Mets don't believe Manaea is a number 1. He was the number 1 because Kodai Senga was hurt and nobody else was better. Am I wrong, Chris, or am I just being an idiot?
No, I mean, well, I've already pushed back on you before about the whole notion that Senga was about why Senga started game 1, right? In terms of
I'm talking in regards to, but if you're gonna put Manaea and Senga on the same pedestal, which seems like some Met fans are, the Mets basically didn't. I know why they tried to win a game and get away with pitching Manaea 2 and having a 1-0 lead in the series. I understand that, but they believed in Kodai Senga over Manaea. That was probably the case because they put a lot of hope in Kodai Senga to win a game.
Well, on the flip side too is that I don't think most Mets fans. I think most Mets fans understand that Sean Manaea isn't an ace. Like, I don't think anybody's trying to convince anybody that Sean Manaea is an ace, unless you've seen some comment. I haven't seen the comments in the chat about Sean Manaea being an ace, but I don't think people think that though. You know what I mean? Like, I think they understand that Sean Manaea is a 2 or 3 in your rotation, probably a 3 if you want to build a championship caliber rotation. I think people understand that, and so. Again, with those same people, again, there's probably a lot of pushback amongst those people, though, that don't believe that or believe that he's not an ace, but also don't want to trade for Garrett Crochet. Then again, who do you pivot to? Because if Burns has been already on record, probably not going to be a fit for the Mets contractually, what are the other options realistically? Or you can play the waiting game if you're David Stearns and not come away with a top line guy and just wait, right? And hope. Hope is never a strategy, though, by the way. I've already said that.
No, and Steve Cohen actually said that. Hope is not a strategy. That was his quote. All right. And that's, again, you're leaving yourself open. Say if Castillo doesn't get traded in this offseason and is going to be a trade down. Again, you're hoping Seattle's bad. Right? If Seattle's good, they're not trading anybody. So you're hoping somebody's going to be available. And if they are, now you have to hope, once again, we're hoping here, that a trade deadline acquisition for a top-line starter is the possibility. And you win that sweepstakes. Because if you don't, once again, the Mets did a subpar job in the offseason when they just paid Juan Soto, and you would think the Mets are going to be contenders this year. So there you go. And, Sally is a White Sox fan. She says, who are the Mets and the White Sox talking about? We don't officially know. We're kind of giving our opinions. But, Sally, are you hearing anything on the South side, with Chicago radio about if you're still in the chat? Please comment and let us know. What are you hearing on your end in Chicago in regards to Garrett Crochet? Because we might be hearing different things than what they're hearing in Chicago, Chris, because obviously they're looking to see what they can get asset-wise. We're just talking about Garrett Crochet and who possibly we would want to give up and what the White Sox might take. But what are the White Sox thinking here? They probably know more. And Sally, if you're still in the chat, please comment what you're hearing when it comes to Garrett Crochet if you're still here.
I've seen scattered reports surrounding Luis Angel Acuna's name being involved, right? Whether it's a headliner, which I would find hard to believe because I do think it's going to take 2 top 10 prospects. I've heard Luis Angel Acuna's name being involved, but again, it's scattered reports, it's unconfirmed reports at that. And so again, take it with a grain of salt, but that's the only thing that I've heard in terms of, any names that are being floated out there to a degree. So
I think this is a Yankee fan. Marky, Rob, why do you keep saying Yanks overpay for Max Fried when y'all overpay for Juan Soto? Because Juan Soto's a Hall of Famer. Max Fried is, you can call him an ace, but again, you overpaid for him. It's just a fact. And the Yankees needed Juan Soto more than they needed Max Fried. I'm sorry to say. Right? The Yankees, right? See, this is the funny thing. It's not like the Yankees offered $600 million and the Mets went to $765. They offered $760 for 16 years, which every offer was an overpay for Juan Soto. So no matter who got him, they overpaid. Right? You had to go to the 8th year for Max Fried because the Red Sox were going to get him, which is nothing wrong with that. I said the Yankees targeted their player and they got him. But let's don't make no mistake about it. They probably wanted him on a 6-year deal. But when your division rival goes up to 7, you have to pivot and overpay an extra year to land him, which, again, I'm always on board with that. You want your guy, you keep him from your division rival, you do that. So I give credit for the Yankees for that. But do they need pitching or do they need offense? Do they need position players? Because you got a lot of damn holes. And now you're you're getting much closer to the luxury tax, the third luxury tax, the Cohen tax, where Hal Steinbrenner is very uncomfortable, right? He's itching right now. Like he feels it in the back of his ass. He feels it. He feels it right now. And they talked about that. Hal talked about that. Cashman talked about that. They weren't willing to talk to Juan Soto and offer a contract to Blake Snell. Because Cashman's words himself said, we can't do that because they can't allocate $80 million to 2 players because they would be over the third luxury tax. They're not going over the third luxury tax. Why? An overpay was necessary for the Yankees because they wanted to keep him for a division rival, right? Max Fried's going to help your rotation. But how many times have the Yankees lost in the playoffs because of their bats? You lost Juan Soto. You can't replace Juan Soto and tell me you're going to be better.
Rob, Yankees fans know that. I don't know why you entertain it. They know it. They're just here to troll. They know what the situation is. They know that this offseason makes them look like not a more elite destination than the Mets. They know that.
Sure. Look, I don't believe Max Fried was a desperate ploy because the Yankees lost Juan Soto. I think it was an overpay because the Red Sox were about to get him. And the Yankees weren't going to pay Burns $35+ million. Right? That's obvious. Right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm giving credit to the Yankees for taking him away from their division rival. But then again, the Red Sox might get Corbin Burns. So it's kind of a wash. I think Corbin Burns is better, but it's kind of a wash. Now, the Yankees have a pretty damn good rotation. But again, we keep on going back to the same thing here. The Yankees' problem in the postseason was hidden. Your MVP can't hit the broadside of a barn in the postseason, and he drops the ball.
Are we going to talk about Bregman or are we going to skip that? Because I honestly think Alonso, if the Yankees get Christian Walker with the reports that we talked about way earlier in this stream, I think it's a lock that Pete Alonso is going to come back to the Mets.
Correct. And the Mets might get him on their offer that they want to get him on. Unless the Mariners shed a ton of payroll because they can't get Alonso, which has been reported in Seattle. They can't go after Alonso, who they want.
Yeah.
They have to shed payroll. That's why the Castillo talks are possible. But again, are the Mets going to trade for Castillo and allow the Mariners to overpay for Pete Alonso? So you're kind of hurting yourself in the other end. You know what I'm saying? So that's the other aspect of things too.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Bregman because we kind of opened up that rabbit hole, like you said, Chris, when we started texting each other.
Yeah, we did.
We talked about that, right? Who knows, right? I don't think it's going to happen, but again, a lot of things can happen with Alonso over the next couple of days, right? I think, again, we all know Alonso's coming back to the Mets to make a final offer before he decides. So the Mets don't have to offer Pete Alonso anything. They could probably told Alonso already, go get the best offer and come back to us, and we'll see what we can do. That's probably the case. I think we can all agree on that. So
there was a little bit of talks about the Astros GM being pretty optimistic that they could reach a deal with Bregman this offseason. That was earlier today, so I'm not sure if anything's changed on that. And what was that?
Who was for Bregman?
Astros just re-signing him.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's what the GM. I mean, they're just saying that they feel optimistic about it. But John Casey on MLB Network brought up a great point: is that if the Astros do miss out on Bregman, they could use that money and up the offer for Alonso. They need a first baseman too. They could be another team in on Alonso.
Yeah, and you know what? Alonso is around the same age as Bregman. Maybe Bregman might be a year older, I think.
Yeah,
but
it's roughly similar.
You're getting more power in a better hitter's ballpark for Alonso. So you probably easily hit 45 in that ballpark, especially with the Crawford boxes.
Yeah.
So, again, this is why, you have to think of different scenarios here, possibilities. Again, I think the Bregman interest is real, but it's Stearns doing his due diligence, because if Pete Alonso gets an offer that he can't refuse, the Mets have to pivot, especially if Christian Walker goes to the Yankees. Now the Mets are you going to get a stopgap like Santana, Yandy Diaz, like you talked about yesterday, Chris, from the Rays? Or you're going to move Vientos over and sign your third baseman in Bregman? Now, that's a lot has to happen for that to be the case. But again, the Mets aren't the only team going after these guys and being involved. These guys can slowly come off the board, and they're not a Met. And this is where the Mets are finding themselves in the pitching market right now, if we want to go back to that. Bregman is realistic if Alonso signs elsewhere. More realistic than people think, especially if Christian Walker is off the board, even if it's not the Yankees, but if he's off the board, right? The Mets probably will put Vientos at first base. Again, Stearns kind of left it in the air when he was asked about Vientos. Is he going to be at third base? And he goes, well, yeah, right now, yeah. But, it's not set in stone, that's kind of like not his exact quote, but it kind of in that range where he doesn't want to move Vientos. But again, you can't control where Alonso goes. And I still don't believe Alonso's taking less money to come to the Mets. So anybody offers something that's uncomfortable for the Mets, Pete Alonso's gone, and now you got to pivot to do something else.
I don't think anything is going to be uncomfortable for the Mets in the Pete Alonso sweepstakes. I truly do believe that. I will stand on 10 toes and say that.
And again, I'm okay. Again, if you want him, you pay him. I don't care about that. That doesn't bother me. I'm just saying, are the Mets gonna go the Juan Soto route in jumping in and continue to up the offer for Pete Alonso if the Mariners saying this is what we're going to do here, or whatever team is out for, let's say whatever team's in on Alonso, they want him, and they just keep upping the offer, and it's well over $200 million.
But those teams that we just named, the Astros and the Mariners, are in no position to do that. They're not those types of teams to do that. They have an offer, Pete takes it, or he goes and the Mets match it. This is not Red Sox, Yankees, Mets we're talking about. This is Mets, Astros, Mariners we're talking about.
So you don't think there's a number that the Mets are not willing to go for Pete Alonso?
Is there a number that they're not? No, I don't think so. I think they're going to. No.
I think they would probably just do it, the $200 million for 8 years or something like that. If that is the offer that they have to match, I think they would do it. Like I said, I don't care about the money in the years. Like it doesn't bother me. Like Pete Alonso in this lineup with Juan Soto is probably going to be better. Like, you just assume that would happen. Again, on paper it looks beautiful, but you have to play it on the field. But you assume it would be great. So I don't care. Do what you got to do. Like, I don't care if you spent $2 billion this year on a roster. I don't give a shit. I truly don't. I'm sick and tired of losing. Right? I'm 37 years old, guys. All right. I don't know if everybody knows that, but I'm 37 years old. I was born the year after the Mets won the World Series in '86. I've seen 2 times the Mets made the World Series in my lifetime, 2000 and 2015. We didn't really give a big fight in those series. We lost both games in Game 5. Right? We didn't, continue losing, not really going for it year after year. If it's the offseason or the trade deadline, they always leave some doubt going into a season or after a deadline where they didn't go all in. I don't care anymore. Get me the team that is going to be a less of a question mark going into a season. That gives you a better chance. These question marks, this hope bullshit, is a waste of time. Waste of time. Because if you really want to win, you can do everything you need to do right now with the players available. And that's it. I'm sick of losing. I'm sick of losing and falling short when you could have made that run, right? Too many Mets runs are miracles, right? 69 they're not called the Miracle Mets for a reason, right? 06 was a really good year. They were one of the best teams in baseball, so we're not going to go there. But they lost to an inferior team in the Cardinals. 2015, we all talked about that roster. It's not a good roster. The lineup was terrible, minus Cespedes. Right? 2022, they were one of the top 3 teams in baseball, and they half-assed the deadline. 2024 was supposed to be an evaluation year. It ended up being a hell of a lot better than all of us thought. But they didn't do enough at the deadline. They didn't get a top-line starter, which they clearly needed once they got into the NLCS, and everybody broke down. So at some point, guys, I want to go into a season being favorites to get to a World Series. I want to be a top 5 team going into the season. Right? You got to play on the field. I want to be a top 5 team going into the playoffs, going into the season. I don't want to have too many question marks. I'm sick of that. It's a waste of time. Sorry, Chris. I have to go after that again.
All right, man. Listen, $200 million for 7 years for Pete Alonso. Get it done. That gets it done. Nobody's going that far for Pete Alonso.
Sure. We can get
200 for 7.
Yeah, 7 years is fine with me.
200 for 7.
Yep.
That's what I say. That's my prediction. That's my early prediction. I think TJ's got a super chat in here. Arenado willing to move to first. You look into it. So listen, this is the thing about Arenado. I've been on record saying that I like Arenado, the player, and that I would be open to it. But the more and more that I hear about Arenado in terms of leadership style or so this is what really irked me today about these guys on MLB Network talking about Arenado is that apparently the way they see it, Arenado, the best fit for him is a team where he just goes out there, produces, and that's all is asked of him. Like nothing more, nothing less. The Mets are trying to build a clubhouse here, right? They're trying to build a clubhouse. And there's a serious factor outside of even age, right, with Arenado to be bringing in a guy that would try, I'm not saying try to mess with that, but like potentially hinder that. So again, I don't know much about Nolan Arenado. Other than that, I'm going based off of what I just heard on MLB Network. Those are their words, not mine. So I'd be wary. And again, there would be a little bit of, I guess, hula hoops you'd have to jump through for that deal to happen, given the contract for Nolan Arenado. Listen, the player on-field production, Nolan Arenado, even at his age, I think is great. Yeah. So in a different universe, I would say yes, 100%. But yeah, I'm not too confident in that, especially when you have Pete Alonso right there. And I think that the Mets are just going to offer what Scott Boras is going to ask for in terms of making him the highest paid first baseman. And again, I know a lot of Mets fans are not in the camp of, ponying up to that for Pete Alonso, right? I know that there's going to be some pushback to that, but I take a look at the options right now and what's available for the Mets to sort of address first base. I mean, if you're not talking about Christian Walker, if you know Vladimir Guerrero is not an option until 2026, right? And that's even a wild card. I mean, again, it's the risk factor of would you pass up on Crochet to wait for something that potentially never happens? Same thing with that scenario is the same thing with the Pete Alonso scenario for first base. So,
yeah, I think Arenado is kind of a scenario where if Pete Alonso isn't a Met and you would move Vientos to first, if the Mets aren't comfortable giving Bregman a big deal, I could see Arenado being an option. I think that's the scenario that the Mets could actually look into that, which is, again, a long shot. Just so you, David Stearns spoke again that you might have said this, Chris, I'm sorry, but the Mets finished their presentation with Roki Sasaki.
Okay, I didn't mention that. I didn't see that.
Okay, yeah, I just saw that when I was rolling down the on X, and yeah, so they finished their presentation with Roki Sasaki, and Stearns says it's in his hands or on the way, whatever that means. So he kind of left a very open answer there, of course, open-ended answer, of course, because that's what David Stearns does.
Yeah.
There's talk about. I'm sorry. There's talk about Walker, Yankees, 3 years, $63 million. So that's $21 million a year. Again, that's going to put him right at that luxury tax. So again, that might be the Yankee team, and that might be it. Just so
Mets, according to Heyman, right now, Mets and Yankees are in the mix for Jonathan Loaisiga. Others in 2, not imminent at the moment.
Okay. Well, like I said, I have no problem. Loaisiga has electric stuff coming back from Tommy John. If he can get back to close to what he was, it's a great bullpen addition. You know, add in Buto and Nunez and Diaz. That's pretty damn good. And Garrett. I mean, that's pretty good. So
yeah, if Loaisiga signs, I don't know what your schedule is like, but I can probably potentially do a little bit of a breakdown of a live stream with you if you're available. We can talk offline about that. But yeah, Loaisiga is a name that I like as well, and I think that a lot of people are kind of scared. I'm curious to see what the contract's going to be though, because they're talking about
$5 million a year. That's a lot.
That's high, and also for 3 years, I don't buy that at all. I would say a 1+1, right? 1 year with an option, or 2 years with an option.
Multiple teams in on him, that's going to raise the price, you know,
Sure,
and that's the issue. That's the other thing too, right? Because we felt out of nowhere, Jonathan Loaisiga was an option for the Mets all of a sudden, and that came out of nowhere. And then now other teams, the Yankees, and I'm assuming other teams might be involved. You know, again, look, again, I don't care. This guy has electric stuff. Again, he's coming back from Tommy John. It's looking like he's already throwing, by the way, for anybody who wants to know. He's already going through a throwing regimen. So there's a possibility he'll be ready for opening day. Most likely, because I was doing the math, he did his surgery in like it was like April 15th to the 20th. Yeah. Like it was like a week and a half after he hurt himself. He did the surgery. So it was before May. So I was just doing May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. So that's 10 months. Usually 10 to 14 months is usually where they start really, you know, coming back, throwing and stuff like that as with Tommy John. So you're going to think he through March is really when he's going to rev up, get those innings, get those pitches. So I don't think he'll be ready for opening day, but he'll probably be ready probably around May. Yeah. So that's a bullpen, and if this guy, he has electric stuff. He was one of the best bullpen arms in the Yankees bullpen for a couple of years prior to getting hurt.
That 2021 season he posted was phenomenal. Also, before we wrap up things here, Mets believe in Clay Holmes as a starter and expect his transition to be an evolving process, which means that we're going to see him in the bullpen a lot too. That's what that screams to me.
It's an experimentation in spring training, right? I truly believe. Now, remember, Stearns did say in that same interview that the agent of Clay Holmes was expressing him to be that he wants to be a starter, right? Again, Stearns didn't promise anything. They're gonna try him out as a starter. I truly believe this. Unless Clay Holmes throws like an ace in spring training and just is completely lights out, his ass is going to the bullpen and is going to be the setup man for Diaz. That is the best scenario for the Mets, especially with the bullpen they possibly could have with Loizica, Buto, Nunez, Diaz, and Clay Holmes. That's a pretty good bullpen. And that's not getting a Stanek or even a Minter or bring back Raley, who's not going to be ready probably until late May, early June. So there's a lot of options there. So I do think that
It'd be a good bullpen.
Yeah, it could be. It absolutely could be. So again, once again, guys, the Mets are in on Crochet. That could happen. I think Crochet is going to get traded over the next couple of days. So that can happen actually fast. The thing with the Mets with Jonathan Loizica, I'm going to work in a couple of hours, so there's probably most likely I'm not going to be available. Just message me if it does broke down. I'll tell you yes or no quickly. Other than that, Sasaki, the Mets finished their presentation with him, so it's up to Sasaki to choose the Mets. Can't do nothing else about that. Mets did what they could, and that's it. Bregman, who the hell knows? Fried is a Yankee. 8 years, $218 million. They're in on Christian Walker. The Mets right now are not in on Burns. So Crochet and Loizica looks like where the Mets are right now. And we'll see if that comes to fruition. If not, we'll talk about something else. Somebody just said Evaldi to Texas. Did he go back?
Yeah, Robert Murray. Breaking news: free agent pitcher Evaldi and the Texas Rangers are in agreement on a contract. So that is another pitcher that is off the board for the Mets.
Oh, there you go, guys. I'm telling you, it's more likely Crochet is going to be a Met, or they're going to try everything they can for him to be a Met. So there you go, guys. Chris, do you have any final thoughts and channel stuff to tell?
Yeah, no. If the Mets do something tonight, I'll go live. I'll try my best to at the very minimum. I do have a video coming out. It's not a live stream; it's just a regular video. So be on the lookout for that. Talking about a bat that the Mets could be signing and should sign because he makes a lot of situational sense for the Mets. Even if they go ahead and get Pete Alonso, no, it's not Pete Alonso; it's somebody else. Again, we've talked about him on our streams, but I break down why I would like to pursue this one particular free agent. But other than that, I'm refreshing my timeline here on X. I'll probably make some dinner while refreshing my timeline, get something to eat, and then I'll just be on Mets watch pretty much for the rest of the night. So yeah, if anything does happen, locked in and loaded, ready to go. Expect something out of this channel. So again, put the notifications on the channel, subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up. And again, this is the place to be for Mets offseason content. So get it.
There you go. So Mets Hot Stove episode 13 in the books, guys. Again, Chris will definitely be available if the Mets break anything, maybe Loizica, Crochet. I'd love to be available. I'm showering, sleeping hopefully 2.5 hours and going to work. So if I could be on my phone at work, again, I won't. It'll be hard, but we'll see. But look out. Remember, hit that notification button, guys, so you can get alerts right away when we go live or post a video with any breaking news. So with that said, guys, thank you for watching Mets Hot Stove episode 13. Mets looking like they're very much in on Crochet, looking to sign Loizica as a bullpen option, and we'll see what else they will be doing to improve this team. Everybody have a great night. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you next time.
Go Mets.
City lights in the dead of night, full of echo, concrete jungle.